Okay, we're live on YouTube. Excellent.
What's up, YouTube?
Hey.
And we still got our volumes. Yeah, we're good to go.
The picture's still not great. I hope that'll work itself out.
It should work itself out. There's nothing else running in here, right? So, should be fine. Testing. Yeah, okay, good.
Cool, I'm about to share that.
And then I'm just going to post it public. Jay, you should share it too.
I will, yeah. Two people are already watching. Chris Wetzel is probably already on there. It looks good on my. It looks really good on my laptop.
It does? Okay. All right. Hey guys, if you're watching on YouTube, throw a comment in there. Let us know who you are. And we'll kick things off in just a sec here.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, sir.
Whenever you're ready, sir. I like to start every show by making fun of you a little bit, apparently.
Is that what you did last time, too?
I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's a good tactic.
Is it?
It is. It's better than chewing on ice into your microphone.
Cool. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live portion of our show tonight. Let's introduce our guest.
Hi.
This is Sandra Dimas. We will introduce her again when we do the proper podcast version, but we don't want you to not know who she is right now. So, Sandra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, okay, well, I wear many hats. Not as cool as Jay's, but I'm an editorial director at Reasons to Believe, so it's a ministry that integrates science and faith. But I'm also a co-host and showrunner for a show called 2019, which we've had you on, Jay.
I was on there, and that was super fun.
We talked about Star Wars and faith, so it was super rad.
Yeah. There's actually a YouTube video. You can watch that YouTube video of us talking. Yeah, it's awesome.
So that's what I do. I kind of do both things, edit and run that show.
Cool.
It's lots of fun.
And you've been on before.
I have.
Yeah, we had you on for our Story Geek Awards show last year.
Yes.
That's right.
Which is coming up again soon, by the way. All you guys who are watching, it'll be on Sunday?
It's a Sunday, yeah.
Sunday, March 11th.
Yeah.
We'll do it live. And you can go vote now. Go to our group, Facebook group, and you'll find a form in there that you can go vote for the Geek films for this year.
Yeah.
So
there's some really good ones on there, some controversial things. So you might want to make sure you get your vote in because you want your voice heard.
Yeah.
These very important geek matters.
Yes. Yes. The Oscars don't love these movies, but we do.
Oh,
that's right.
Well, the Oscars love a few of these movies.
a few of them.
Oh, and I'm going to plug this because I'm currently, this weekend, we'll be filming a Why Logan Doesn't Deserve an Oscar based on popular demand.
You're finally going to publicly bash on Logan.
I'm finally going to get there, yes.
You have such deep feelings about Logan.
He does.
Oh, yes. I have very deep feelings about Logan.
He's very hurt by Hugh Jackman. Or maybe more James Mangold.
It's more James Mangold. Yeah. No, Hugh Jackman's phenomenal, which I'll say in the video.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, so for those of you guys who are watching live, right now, before we get into the proper podcast, we're going to just talk about some of the geek news from this week. This is a special thing that only live viewers get. This will not be put on YouTube after this. It will not be on the podcast. Just for you guys.
Yes.
So I set out some stuff to these guys that we were going to talk about, but I'm actually going to blindside a little bit first.
Oh, snap.
So
I'm ready.
Right.
The good big news here in the Story Geeks world is that Jay has finally seen Get Out.
Oh, that's true. Yes. I did finally see Get Out. That's true.
Yes.
That is true.
And you saw it just recently, too.
I did. I don't know why I waited so long.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing from people. So I've talked about it. We know I love it, but let's take a minute and you guys tell us what you thought of it now that you've both finally seen it.
You first, yeah.
That is such a phenomenal film. I felt like the scene with the party so appropriately and like accurately represented the microaggressions that people of color experience. Like I've been to there's a writers conference, and I was one of the few people of color there, and that was the kind of the conversations that we would have. They would just say like, oh, things that were very stereotypical.
Right.
And so when those were happening, I was like, oh man, they're so subtle, and you can see his response. Like you can see him acknowledge it and go, it's not worth it. Like I feel that, and I'm just gonna pretend that doesn't bother me.
Right.
So that was such a great depiction of that.
Yep.
But overall, the story, I mean, it was a different story than I was expecting.
Oh yeah.
Because I was expecting that. I was expecting to see what life is like when people say they aren't racist, but they really are.
Right.
But then beyond that, I don't know is it okay to give the spoilers? Are there people out there who...
Constant spoiler alert on this show.
Okay.
Just assume if we talk about something, it could get spoiled. So
yeah.
Well, just
go away for like a minute.
Yeah. No, but just the fact that they were doing these surgeries to then be placed in their bodies like that, then it became a different film. So it wasn't just a social commentary, but then you're talking about like kind of like transhumanism in a sense. So that was
true.
Pretty nuts.
That's exactly what they were doing. Yeah. Transhumanism for sure.
I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Because they were actually like legit staying alive in other people's bodies essentially.
Yeah, like grandma. I'm like, what? And it was crazy to think that they were so racist, but yet they wanted to be in these bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
weird.
Yeah.
That was strange.
So what did you think?
I thought it was good. I think that by the time that I saw it, it wasn't fair anymore because it had been so hyped for me.
Yeah.
So I was expecting I think my expectations were a little bit too high. That's not to say it's not a good film. It's a great film. Mm-hmm. And the social commentary I thought was outstanding. Yeah. Like the scene you mentioned where he's constantly dealing with these things, whether they're microaggressions or just outright racist things, right? Like he's constantly reacting to them, and like you said, he's constantly like, okay, that's not worth it to go there. And then on the flip side, you have the white people who essentially don't even know what they're doing, and they don't even necessarily see it as racist, so they're like kind of surprised.
They're just shopping.
Yeah, it's just that too. So I think it's a fantastic concept. I think there were a few things that I sort of guessed at that I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of got that beforehand. And I don't know if I had seen it in the theater, if I would have been able to guess those things, but I was kind of looking for a twist because I knew there was a twist. I knew everyone kept saying, like, you can't spoil it, you can't tell anybody. Yeah. So I think that puts you in a frame of reference of... So I thought it was a very good film. It definitely... Jordan Peele is amazing. Mm-hmm. At multiple things, and I can't wait to see him do more. Yeah. And all of the acting in that film was really great. But I think because I waited so long to see it, it was a little bit. I could predict things that I wasn't expecting to be able to predict. So that was, but I still think it's great. It's great, but
I loved the friend too because he brought it into
he's
reality
hilarious.
Of like, no, why are you there? At the end when he's like, I told you not to go in that house.
Exactly.
Like, yes.
I know, I love that too. That was great.
I actually had Allison Williams as Rose Armitage on my list of top villains for the nominations. She didn't make it, but she was on my list.
Yeah. She was a good villain.
Yeah.
She was a really good villain. So was the mom. So was her mom. She was a great villain. Because she just talked the whole time. And she was the one who, the entire time I'm watching the film, I'm like, I think she's basically racist and doesn't care. Everyone else is kind of like pretending they're not. Yeah. And she was kind of like, you could just see she was just kind of like, you guys are so stupid. Why are you doing that? It's like true evil. The embodiment of evil. Anyways.
True.
I'm glad I'm a coffee drinker, not a tea drinker.
Exactly.
Well, it wouldn't matter, right? It's just the sound of the spoon.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
Yes, Monty makes a good point. He says the actor who played the brother would make a great Joker. I actually said that to Jamie while we were watching the movie.
And you said it again to me when we were watching with you. Yeah.
He's so creepy.
Yes.
As soon as he came out of the scene, I was like,
Was he talking about jujitsu or something?
I don't
like,
even.
What's
Yeah.
wrong with this dude?
Oh,
And he's like, I don't want to fight.
yes. So messed up. Good point, Monty.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, sorry about the blind side there, but
No. I like that.
I didn't
like
want to tell you about that. I thought it'd be more fun to hit you with
that.
it.
It is more fun that way.
So just a few other things to talk about, and then we'll start the proper podcast. But Incredibles 2, we got the longest trailer we've gotten yet so far.
Yeah. This
So-
year almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
We keep getting teasers.
Yeah, they showed it during the Olympics last night. So you both watched it?
Yep.
What'd you think?
Did my homework.
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm excited for it. I love that The Incredibles shows a family.
Mhm.
Nobody's dead. So you've got this family. I love that. I love that Samuel Jackson's going to be in it again.
Yeah.
He just needs to be in all the
Yeah.
things. I have seen some criticism because there's always that. And the criticism is like, oh, it's just a bumbling dad who can't dad.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
See, I had exactly the opposite. I was like, I am almost a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
You know? I'd like to think I'm not a bumbling dad,
Yeah.
but
I was
I'm
gonna say
almost a
no.
stay-at-home dad. And I was like, this is sweet. Like,
Oh.
a stay-at-home dad who's a superhero. And my son's been watching the first Incredibles, like, every day for the last couple weeks because it's his new favorite movie. And he's been calling me Mr. Incredible. Just because I'm the
That's
dad,
awesome.
you know? And he
That's
wants to be
awesome.
Dash. And so Jamie's Elastigirl and our other little boy is Jack. And we don't have a Violet, but that's okay. So,
She's just being invisible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and now Mr. Incredible is a stay-at-home dad, so it's kind of like, that's cool.
It works.
Yeah.
It fits. I don't know exactly what to think about it. I am a huge Pixar fan, and I like just about everything that they do. I was a little surprised at the angle they took with it. So as I was watching it, I'm thinking like, oh, I guess this could be great. I think as a not dad, I'm going like, okay, that's probably going to be good, but I don't necessarily have an emotion that I'm putting on top of that because there's multiple things they're playing with there. They're playing with culturally that they're dealing with the mom being outside of the house and working and the dad staying home, and those are kind of like traditional gender role swaps, right? And you've got and then you've got like the dad kind of going crazy watching his little kid. There's a one scene where he's got really deep shadows under his eyes and the kid's turning into a demon baby. And I think that all of those things are
That
probably
really happens, by the way.
I assume it does. I see the meltdowns at Disneyland
It's
when
true.
I'm there.
Oh,
yeah. But I think that all of that can really speak to some important cultural things. I think Pixar is really good at doing that.
Yeah.
But since I don't find myself in a dad role, I don't know that I don't have an emotional reaction just watching a trailer. I probably will once I actually see the film, but that's because Pixar will draw it out of me with their storytelling. Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. I like that it picks up right where the last one left off.
Oh yeah.
So,
Just like Last Jedi.
So maybe you got a problem with it. You,
No, not at all.
you need that time jump in there to.
Give me a time jump. I need a time jump. No, I really enjoyed the first Incredibles. The first Incredibles I thought was outstanding. It's one of my favorite Pixar films. So I'm looking forward to it. I just didn't have an emotional response to it, like, for any reason.
So Monty says Alex Ohanan, the guy who created Reddit, got called a babysitter in an article talking about how Serena was out doing tennis. And Alex responded by saying, Serena is a mom and I'm a dad. We don't babysit.
Yeah.
That's
Good
good.
point.
There
That's
you go.
true.
There you go.
Yeah.
They called him out. Like
I know.
Well, this is Reddit.
Yeah.
You can't trust anything on Reddit.
I've
can
heard
you?
it's like just mean. I've heard everything's mean.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna change the subject. Let's talk about Batman Ninja. So I don't know if you guys have heard about Batman Ninja, but it's an anime version of Batman. It's Japanese, but we are getting an English language release in April and May, digital and Blu-ray. And the trailer for it came out this week, the English language trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
It looks amazing. I don't know if I'll see it, but it looks like the animation is spectacular. I was just blown away by that. And it's kind of like throwing me to see Batman in like that type of animation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it looks phenomenal. Yeah.
They did an anime Batman a couple years back. I can't remember the name of it, but there was an anime Batman that they put out there. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It was just like a short?
Yeah, and it was a little bit more futuristic.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as the way that they're styling it.
It might have been part of... There was a series of animated shorts that came along with Batman Begins.
Oh, that could have been it.
It might have been one of those.
Yeah, it might have been one of those.
I'm not sure.
I think Batman works really well for anime. Like, I don't think it would work well for Superman at all. I think that's kind of like a don't even take it there. For Batman, I think it works great because I think a lot of times, especially I'm not like a big anime guy. I don't watch a lot of anime. So when I see a lot of things that are taken into that dimension, a lot of times it throws me. I'm like, that's not what I recognize. It doesn't seem like what I like. But when you take Batman, a lot of masks, a lot of the enemies have weird shaped faces, and the anime works perfectly for all of those things. So when I was watching this trailer, I was really excited about it. I do think it's interesting. It kind of looks like it might be a Last Samurai type of a deal, where you're like, and I do think that there is something to be said culturally. So I believe that's an anime film probably done by a Japanese studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that because if you had a U.S. studio do that and it was not made by Japanese people, I'd be like, why does Batman need to be a samurai? So I'm glad when a culture says, I think we can make something really cool if we take it on. I think it's really dangerous if as creators we say, why don't we take your culture and put something on it?
Yeah.
So and I'm not
it's
calling anybody out, but this looks pretty cool.
It's legit. It's been out there as like the Japanese language trailer has been out for a couple months.
Oh yeah.
We just finally got the English
Joker looks phenomenal.
Yeah, he
does.
Yeah. That was the whole reason why I was like, this looks really good. I'd be tempted, but I still don't know. There's so much to consume these days.
Oh, it's way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Plus books. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're an avid reader.
Yeah.
I've like almost given up reading because there's so much.
I don't have that problem. I read comics, so I still have comics.
Oh, I read those and I count those.
Okay.
Like I count it. Well, because I mostly read like the volumes and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Those should be counted.
Yeah.
And then Daryl lets me borrow a bunch of his comics.
Yes.
That's how it works.
True. What I'm excited about with Batman Ninja is like the whole family is there. Every iteration of Robin, Nightwing is there, Batgirl's there.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see that done.
Yeah.
In that format. And there's other little hints of characters too. Like I think I saw Deathstroke in there, a version of him.
Really?
And yeah.
Ooh, cool.
You have to be real familiar with what these characters look like originally to catch them in that trailer.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for it. It looks good. So
that was pretty cool too when Batman had like a lot. I mean, there's always Batmans where they have Batman put on some kind of different suit, and when you do that in a time period, half the time I'm like, really? Is that like, why would you put him in that?
Or if the suit has nipples.
Yeah,
it's always with the nipples.
The Joel Schumacher nipples.
The 1970s Batman suit. But in this particular case, I'm like, actually, the samurai armor fits pretty well with Batman.
It works.
So I was excited about that.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about before we start the podcast, Caitlin says, "Will you ever talk about Batman without the nipples?" I'm thinking no.
No, probably not.
What are you going to do? The last thing we're going to talk about before we start is Black Panther.
Oh.
So, as we record this, Black Panther tonight.
Yep.
You could go see Black Panther tonight if you bought tickets like a month ago.
There are some people that skipped our show to go see Black Panther.
I was tempted.
It's totally fair.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm going on Sunday, so no spoilers. But it is, last I checked, it was projected to open at about 165 million this weekend.
That's insane.
Which would put it within the top 5 or 6 superhero films openings of all time, and within like the top 10 film openings of all time.
Wow.
In
Crazy.
general. Yeah. So I think I know what those are, so we can talk about that too. But you guys talk about that for a second. Give me a sec here.
You should go because I have a lot of feelings about this.
You know what? I think that So we've done a couple of different videos. You can watch them on our YouTube channel. I did one where I broke down the podcast where Hannibal, Taboo, and Michael Young and Daryl and I talked about the character. I learned a lot from that conversation, a lot about his backstory, a lot about what was important about his character, because Hannibal has been a fan for a really long time, and Michael too. And so they brought a lot of context that I didn't have. Because again, I'm not Mr. Comics reader, so I don't read a lot of comics. So it's important for me to hear some of the origins and some of how that stuff came about. So I really enjoyed that part of the conversation. I really enjoyed his character. I think he is probably my favorite introduction into the MCU, which is crazy because we've seen so many characters. I mean, Spider-Man's also a pretty cool introduction. The way they introduced him in Civil War was pretty cool. Iron Man was a pretty cool introduction. They had their own films. And so I'm excited that this is not necessarily an origin story, not necessarily. And I'm also excited about the cast. I'm also excited about the visuals. The visuals look phenomenal. I have gotten to the point where I am now worried that I was so excited about it and the hype machine is so high. I'm actively trying because I had the experience with Get Out, right, where everyone just said it was amazing. I'm like, it's really good, but I felt like I was on the hype train, so I'm trying to take my expectations down a few notches. But I would have said like a month ago, this was going to be my film of the year. Like this is going to be my favorite film of the year. So. Now I'm trying to be like,
slow down the hype
maybe
train.
It's not. You know, like maybe convince myself it's not that, you know. But
oh man, I am excited for this film. I feel like all of the hype is warranted because it's clearly showing that representation is important. And to me I'm hyped. I'm like, okay, can we get like maybe later on down the road, like America Chavez, can we get her? Like, what would that? And I was like talking to my friends about what would that soundtrack look like because we've been listening to the Black Panther soundtrack so much. Like, I was sending an email and meant to say the title of a manuscript, and I said, "Here's the latest version of Black Panther." No, wait a minute. I mean the book title. Because I've just been listening to it. And yeah, I mean, just representation is so important, and it seems like it shouldn't be. I mean, it doesn't seem like that to me, but for some people it's just kind of hard. Like, why should it matter? But it really does matter. And this is showing how much people have wanted this. And that there is an audience and a comic book reading audience who, a Black audience to watch a comic book film, superhero film. That's amazing. And the cast, the director, the fact that he's been a longtime Black Panther fan, like that's pretty crazy. And then also just like the costuming, how how you were talking about instead of people taking someone else's culture and doing something with it, that they hired a woman who has been creating African attire and designing pieces like that, and then she took that and brought it into a superhero, like how can I create costumes out of this and jewelry, and then even just like how they're making it look like it's not the culture isn't one that is lacking. That was what Lupita said in one of her interviews. It's like so many times when you see Africa, it's just looking like a sad place where you don't want to go, and they're always lacking. And this is saying the opposite. It's showing the opposite. And so for all of those reasons, besides what the story's going to do, I am super pumped for it. I can't wait. And I missed seeing it tonight, but I'm gonna see it opening weekend for sure.
Thank you for doing that.
I think that little turn, and Hannibal talked a lot about this on our podcast, which came out Monday. You can go listen to the audio on Monday because the live video is awful because for some reason the stream never fixed itself, so we're super blurry. But you can listen to the audio, and the audio is great. But Hannibal talked a lot about the fact that this is a non-colonized African country, Wakanda. And that is, I think, essential to the character. It's essential to the story, and I think it's a really cool idea that's working its way into our cultural zeitgeist, and it's a good conversation starter.
And I just finished reading. I don't have his name handy. The guy that wrote.
Is it Priest? Did you read the Priest one or the other one?
No, the older one.
Okay.
But drawn by John Romita Jr. Monty, I think you know the guy's name. Is Reginald? It's bugging me that I can't remember it.
It's
If
like
you
Holland.
comment if you know
Holland
it.
or something like that? Reginald?
But I just finished reading his first run, or the first arc of his run in the comics, and that was the first Black Panther comic I ever read. And now, I mean, I was already excited for the movie, but now I'm like super even more excited for it because it was such a good comic.
Yeah.
But we got a couple good comments here too. Monty said, "It's finally going to talk about what the MCU is about. How do I be a hero and be myself?"
Oh, that's good.
That's a good point.
And then Caitlin says it's so desperately needed in our culture right now. It's hopeful, kind of how Wonder Woman was hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
man,
really
I wanted to
important, too.
fight everyone when I. I mean, not really, but just like I felt like I wanted to, like I could. At
Yeah,
least,
yeah.
I could take on anyone.
I like that.
So that's everything I had. Is there any last minute stuff you guys want to throw in?
No, just listen to that soundtrack, man. It's fire.
Oh, that sounds yeah.
Fire emoji.
I feel like they are doing everything right.
Yeah.
I mean, they hired the right people. They hired the right directors. They hired the right actors, and then they tell you, oh, by the way, we're getting Kendrick to do the soundtrack.
I know.
It's like, can you guys do anything wrong about this movie? Like, this movie's perfect. That's cool.
Well, it could still suck.
No,
Well,
I don't think it's going to.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm
No.
trying to get the hype train down because I don't want to go into
No,
it.
it
thinking
will not
like,
suck.
I don't think it's going to either. But
And by the way, I pulled this up, so I'll go ahead and share it. If it comes in at 165 million or higher, it'll put it at number 4 of all time, behind Age of Ultron, The Dark Knight, and the first Avengers movie.
oh,
For superhero films, as far as films in general, it'll put it at number, and it'll be just out of the top 10. So, and by the way, the top 10 is all geek films.
Really?
It's Star Wars films, Jurassic
Oh, yeah,
Park,
that makes
Marvel films, Beauty and the Beast, Harry Potter, Batman v Superman.
that's because geeks are
So-
awesome.
Because we spend the money.
That's right.
Because we spend the money.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. We don't have it, but we spend it. I don't know. Maybe some of us have it.
Monty's throwing out Altered Carbon on Netflix. Have either of you guys watched any of that?
No, he keeps telling me to watch that. Every
Yeah.
day I see him, did you watch it? I'm like, dude, I saw you yesterday at like 11
What is
p.m.
it called?
Altered Carbon.
What's like
It's
the
based on a
genre?
book series, right?
Okay. That
So the
seems
premise-
up my alley.
The
It's like
premise
Netflix's next big series. It
The
just
premise
came
is
out.
basically that this premise has been done in sci-fi before, but I don't think I've ever seen a show about this. But basically that your consciousness can be downloaded
Okay.
and given to different bodies. So altered carbon, like
Oh, yeah,
we're made
yeah.
of carbon,
Mhm.
we're taking a different body type, like saying, okay, you're gonna die, but then your conscious moves.
Can you put it in
consciousness
multiple people at the same time? Because then I can get a lot of stuff
Oh,
done.
that-
That would be awesome. I gotta watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, he keeps telling me to watch it, and I really want to watch it. It's just a matter of getting the time to watch it.
Yeah.
And it stars Joel Kinnaman, right? From Suicide Squad?
Maybe.
Like Rick Flag in Suicide Squad. I think I'm right about that.
Monty knows, I'm sure.
So, cool. Well, sorry, Monty. None of us have seen it, but
We
now
will.
it's out there.
Yeah.
So
We will see it. He told me that I'm going to want to do a podcast on it. too.
Okay.
So,
Have you done one on Black Mirror yet?
no. No, you know what? I've only seen one episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, if it was the
Um,
first one, like the first one,
Yeah,
season
keep
one.
watching, right?
Yeah, because the first one is like, ooh,
It's
and
weird.
it weeds out a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's
going.
amazing.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
But I did watch just the first one, and I was just
Yeah.
like, I
Push
don't
through
know.
it.
Okay,
Push through it.
okay. I will.
Monty confirmed, by the way. It is Joel Kinnaman.
Nice.
And then before we move on, just one more comment about Black Panther. Caitlin says the next step is to start hiring black directors and actors in lots more films that are not about Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like Caitlin and I are, I'm just calling it, we're best friends now.
That's awesome. And she's totally right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it for the live only portion of this show.
Yeah, that's the live.
So-
The only way for you to see what you just saw is live.
So,
So
you 6 who are watching now,
The
Exclusive.
Elite
Awesome
Six.
content. Yeah.
So now we're going to do the awkward thing where we're pretending to start over and we're going to go into the proper portion of the podcast. So, you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. What's up, Story Geeks? It's Daryl. We are geeks, and we love geek stories. Science fiction, fantasy, comic books. We love to love geek stories, but sometimes we also love to hate them. We have opinions, and we want to share them. That's what we're doing today. The Story Geeks are going to hash it out.
That's right, and we'd love for you to join the conversation. I'm Daryl's co-host, Jay, and we want to hear your thoughts, so hash it out with us. Make sure you're subscribed on our blog, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, or YouTube, and leave us a comment. If you're watching live on YouTube, some of you are, which happens most Thursdays at 7:30 Pacific time. You can even ask us questions or give us your opinions while we're streaming. We will actually read them off. We'll actually discuss them, and today's going to be really important for that, based on what the topic
Yeah, we
we're
need your
working
help
on.
today.
Yeah, so make sure you click the subscribe button so you can join us in the future. And as always, the Story Geeks podcast is produced by the Reclamation Society.
That's right. So our topic today is we are going to determine the most iconic Steven Spielberg geek films. Obviously, that's going to bring a lot to mind. And we'll get to all of it. So we are actually going to go through, we've chosen a list of 13 films. Well, I've chosen a list of 13 films. You guys haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through each one, and we've got a board for visuals and everything, and we are going to rank these films. But here's the thing, we're only going to rank 12 films. One of these films is going to get the boot.
Yeah.
And we think we might know which one that is, but we'll talk about it as we go.
It's sort of obvious.
Yeah.
It is sort of obvious.
So it
but
deserves it, too.
maybe it won't be that one. It probably will.
Yeah.
So, and then I think we're going to have some specific Patreon content after this as well.
We are, yeah. So after we finish the live broadcast, after we finish the podcast for our Patreon subscribers, and I'll talk about Patreon later in the show and how you can get access to this content, but we are going to have content specific to Patreon. Our Patreon supporters will be able to access it, and it will be about our top 5 Steven Spielberg geek films.
That's right.
So not only just the iconic that we decide together, that we hash it out together with everybody in this studio plus everybody on YouTube,
But our actual personal top
but
5.
our actual personal top 5 as well.
No rhyme or reason, just I love it. Right?
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
It's theoretically possible that one of us could have a film that is not on this list of 13.
Ooh.
If you can argue that it's a geek film, which we've basically said is really not that hard to do.
No, it's really not. Yeah, we kind of accept most submissions.
That's right. Another way you can support us is by writing us a review on iTunes. It helps us get more views. It helps us get the podcast out to more people's eyes and ears, and so that would be really helpful. I believe we have a review that we'll read at the end of the show.
Yep, we can do that.
Cool.
We've got plenty of them.
So, by now you're all wondering who this mystery person is sitting next to me. So, Jay, tell us about that.
Yeah, Sandra Dimas. So I met Sandra really randomly through a mutual friend.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so how in the world does this person know this person? So reach out to Sandra, and we actually had Sandra on our show about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
She came on the Story Geek Awards show, which was awesome, and has subsequently been on a couple other shows, haven't you? Have you done other shows with us?
I know I did a video.
You did some Stranger Things, didn't you?
Oh yeah, did you do Stranger Things?
No.
Well, I think you did. I think you might have done one Stranger Things, but then you also
I
did
did.
the movie review
Yeah.
of The Last Jedi. So
Yeah.
we did the collaborative
Moana.
review. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So many feelings.
So talk about who you are, what you do, and
Yeah, okay, so I work for a ministry called Reasons to Believe, and that's our focus is on integrating science and faith. So really fun conversations happening there. I'm the editorial director, and I'm also the host and one of the co-hosts for our show called 2819. So that one, on my segment in particular, I talk about culturally relevant topics. So we've had you on, we've talked about Star Wars and faith.
Yep.
Just things that we're going to hear in everyday conversations.
Yeah.
So that's what we talk about. It's a lot of fun.
It was awesome. It was really fun to be on that show. We talked about The Last Jedi.
Yep.
Talked about some of the deeper themes in The Last Jedi. So yeah, that was a real blast. They have a really cool studio over there as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us again.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you
Yeah.
for inviting me.
Of
It's
course,
fun.
of course.
All right. So before we dive in to start ranking these films, just a couple of things. First of all, the whole reason we're doing this is because obviously Ready Player One is coming out in March. So we're very excited about that. You've obviously read that book. You've had that book explained to you.
From Network 1901?
Yes. I know nothing about
friends.
it other than what's in the trailers. I want to keep it that way, so let's not,
Yeah.
don't spoil anything, but
we won't say anything to spoil it.
obviously it looks amazing. So, it's Spielberg's big triumphant return to geek films.
It is.
It better be.
And also very 80s inspired, which is what
Yeah.
you see in the trailer. So.
Caitlin says she read the book based on your recommendation.
Oh.
So that's cool.
Yeah, we had like a little geek fest about that, and like what was she was asking questions and what was your favorite thing of like nostalgic thing, and I'm like, oh, there's so many.
Yeah, it's true.
So, we're not really going to talk about Ready Player One because there's not a whole lot to talk about movie-wise yet, but go watch the trailer. It's amazing, and it comes out, I believe, at the end of March.
Yeah, I think it's like
March
30th
24th or something like that.
I have it on my phone.
Somewhere in there. And then the other thing I want to do just quickly is, so we're talking about, we're going to rank these films according to their iconicness. But what does that mean? Iconic is sort of a kind of a nebulous term.
Yeah.
So earlier today, I sort of threw it out to the Story Geeks community to try and seek out a definition that we could use. And I didn't come up with like one single good one because there were way too many good replies. But I thought I'd jump in and share some of them, which I should have navigated to do that a little bit more quickly. Here we go. Man, there were some good ones. So Jay, you talked about cultural impact.
Yeah.
Emotional impact, quality of the work.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about timelessness, a universal core theme. Caitlin talked about films or characters that strike a chord due to timing or somehow articulate themes or ideas that are being struggled with in the culture currently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Panther, Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
great examples of that.
Did Caitlin also talk about launching like a new
Yes.
kind of not a
Ushering
genre,
in
but-
a new take on a genre or a whole new genre,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like Jurassic Park,
right.
you know. And then what else have we got? Films that have leaped forward in visual effects.
Mm.
And then we did get into a little bit of can a film be iconic for being bad, which I think we'll probably talk a little bit about that at some point. But some ones that were thrown out for that, Caitlin Gibson mentioned Battlefield Earth. Chris Wetzel mentioned The Room.
Oh, hi.
There was some discussion about Avatar. I don't know that it was specifically saying that Avatar is iconic for being bad. To me, Avatar is iconic for being bad.
It's iconic for being 3D and it's bad.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, timelessness, ushering in a new genre, cultural impact, emotional impact, all of those things that we just talked about. As we talk about how we're going to rank these films according to their iconicness, that's the kind of stuff we want to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough?
I like it.
Cool.
I like
Should
it
we
a
get
lot,
the board?
actually. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Yes, we can
You
break
ready
out
for
the
the
board.
board?
So if you are listening to this, we'll do our best to describe the board to you so you can kind of see what's going on.
Yes.
But if you also want to, you can go watch this on
I need to
YouTube
see
because
the
the
video.
live recording will be on YouTube.
So we do have a visual board. It's really just a whiteboard with the numbers 1 through 12 written on there. And we have some visual aids of what our films are, and we're just going to put them on there and move them around and rank them. So,
Yeah.
like Jay said, we'll talk about this as we do it. So, those of you who are listening to this later, want to bring it over here?
All right.
Okay.
Not poke your eyeball
Yeah,
out.
there we go.
All right.
'Cause I got a little bit more room.
Okay. And yeah, like Jay said, we'll talk about this as we do it so that you who are listening won't feel left out. Oh, Monty makes a good point. Last Airbender, iconic for being bad.
Yeah. Oh
Oh.
man. Yes.
It's mind-numbing. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So we don't have any favoritism in how we approach this. We're going to talk about these films from newest to oldest. So, Steven
Moon
Spielberg's most recently released geek film was The BFG.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Yes.
So, oops, that's wrong. The BFG. So, this is not a good way to start, but I haven't seen this movie.
I
So,
haven't seen it either.
I saw it.
okay, tell us about it.
It's adorable. I mean, it's a Roald Dahl
Hmm.
book, so that's the type of audience that you're gonna get from that. It's more of a kids'
Right.
film. It's funny. It's cute. And it was beautiful. Just the giants and the little.
It looked cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool. It was really cool. I would not put it on the top 5 or 6.
So we're not gonna give it the boot.
I wouldn't give it the boot.
Okay,
No,
but you're
because
thinking.
I know what else is in there. I'm pretty sure I would give the boot.
Okay.
I wouldn't give it the boot.
Yeah.
All right, so we're saying bottom 6.
Yeah.
Would you say somewhere in 7 to 9 or somewhere in 10 to 12?
10 to 12.
10 to
That's
12,
where I
okay.
put it.
So we'll put it at 12 for now.
Having not seen it, I feel like I'd put it there.
Yeah.
So.
It's a good kid film. And yeah, I mean it was beautiful, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has Mark Rylance in it, who is an
That dude is
incredible
amazing.
actor.
Yes.
But I
Pretty
sort of
good
got the
slice.
sense that, with mocap and stuff like that, you can't quite get the nuance out of him that you would
Yeah,
if it was live
sure.
action.
it was good though. It
Yeah,
was good.
really?
Yeah. It was a good adaptation.
So we have
too.
the BFG at 12
Yes.
so far.
Yeah, and we will go back and we will readjust these
Yeah.
at the end. So
Yeah.
this what you see for now is not the final rank. So we'll keep refining this as we go. A few comments about the BFG. Caitlin says it's cute, so she agrees with you there. And Monty has a lot of great things to say about it. He says camera work was great, human animation integration was insanely great, and he thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Caitlin says there are definitely beautiful moments. And Monty says, as a broke college kid struggling with not being good enough with life during the time I saw it, it helped him face his giants.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much because he's a giant,
Yeah.
but he's a small giant in a world of big giants.
Oh,
So,
okay. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
And they
'Cause the BFG stands for the Big Friendly Giant, right?
Yeah, I did not know that that's what the F stood for. So
Oh.
I was like,
What did
is
you
this?
think it was?
This is
Well,
a kid
not
movie?
that. Yeah.
Big Friendly Giant?
What kid movie is this?
Well, because I started with the book, so I
Yeah,
was familiar
yeah,
with
yeah.
the book, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, and in there, just because this was like I've got a horrible sense of humor, like a teenage boy sense of humor. In that world, burping is really offensive, and
Oh.
farting is less so. So it's kind of the opposite, I guess,
Yeah, yeah.
in our world. So I just thought it was
That's
funny, but they call them, I think, whiz pops. So
Nice.
yeah, it's just fart humor.
I guess I guess we'll just see the movie now. I mean, Monty.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to our next film. So, our next film is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Boo.
That's definitely getting the.
Take it out.
right?
I don't have a problem with that.
Booted. Does anyone want to keep Crystal Skull on the iconic movies from Steven Spielberg list?
If you guys on the live show, now's your time to speak up for it, because in 5 seconds I'm going to throw it across the room. We're not going to do it.
As far as I'm concerned, Indiana Jones is a trilogy, and I'm very happy with it staying that way.
All right.
Is this the Room of the Indiana Jones franchise? The Room version?
It's the
Yes.
Avatar of the Indiana Jones
Oh,
franchise.
okay.
The last Airbender.
It is basically it's worse than the third Matrix film. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Oh, way worse.
Yeah. Well,
I like the third Matrix film.
you do.
Yeah.
This is a different podcast.
All right. Excuse me. Everybody agrees. It's
Done.
gone.
Done. Just
Crystal
took out-
Skull not making the list.
No, Crystal Skull.
Sorry, whoever's sitting across the room, I just killed you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next film we'll talk about is War of the Worlds, which I saw. Did you guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a million times.
What did you think?
I liked it. I remember the old
If you saw it a
one.
million times, obviously you liked
It's
it.
one of those that if it's on, just like another Spielberg film, which I don't think will be here in this pile, but Twister. If it's on, I'm probably gonna watch it. It's just, and I don't really like Tom Cruise, but I like this movie. I feel like the story is.
Yeah.
I like it. I like to see him try to figure out how to be a dad who's actually present. And
Yeah.
the teenage son trying to figure out what he's supposed to do when the entire world's falling apart. Yeah, and Dakota Fanning is really
that's
good.
right.
She's really good in that film. But I liked it. It's a fun run.
I think I can't think of anything that is iconic about it besides the fact that it was based off of super iconic radio drama / then movie. And so I feel like it's one of those movies where you go, yeah, it's really good. Like it's solid. Like everyone in it is great. But it's nothing that it wasn't transformational to my life, nor did I do I watch it yearly. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I enjoyed it. I love Tom Cruise. He's one of my favorite movie stars. Not one of my favorite actors, but one of my favorite movie stars.
Actors.
Actors.
That's one of my favorite actors.
I don't like it when he stretches himself. I love Mission Impossible. I love Event Horizon, Oblivion, the kinds of movies where Tom Cruise is doing Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
But, Vanilla Sky, Rock of Ages.
Jerry Maguire?
Jerry Maguire was great.
Yeah.
That's the one exception. But
That's
for the most part, when he stretches himself, I'm out.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't think there's anything particularly iconic about it. As a Spielberg film or as a Tom Cruise film. It's not one of my favorite Tom Cruise films either. Yeah. But it's a good movie.
Yeah.
So clearly we're going to put this in the bottom 6, probably the bottom 3.
Yeah.
I'd put it at 10.
Okay, so we'll put it at 10 for now. Does that sound good to you?
All right.
Okay.
So War of the Worlds goes in at 10.
Yes. And I'm sure as we go on, we'll have more to say about these films because we're going to start getting into the better stuff. Oh, like right now. The next film we have to talk about is Minority Report.
Minority Report.
Never seen it.
Seriously?
What?
Oh,
It's
boy.
a Tom Cruise film, I'm telling you.
Oh.
I've never seen any of the Mission
Man.
Impossible films.
Are you serious?
I swear.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and Mission Impossible. That you can't be friends with Daryl anymore. That's
No,
like his
no,
favorite
you can.
series.
You can.
We have the Moana connection.
Yeah.
That goes deep. Well, what did you think of Minority Report?
So, based on it being an iconic film, I think I hadn't really seen anything like it at the time. It was coming out at a time when a lot, if I'm not mistaken, when did it actually say it came out? It came out in the
says
early
this
2000s, right?
I don't think that helps.
It's always being released here.
Yeah, I think it was early 2000s.
Early 2000s, which is sort of like
Can bring it up
after
on
the
IMDb.
Matrix. There's a lot of good science fiction back then in that time period. From an iconic perspective, I'm not sure I can say that it was super iconic, but what it did have is it had the screens that were glass screens that people were using.
Yeah,
one of the
move
first
on the
times I've
side,
ever seen that.
Yeah.
And I know it's been in other. I think it was in other stuff technically, but like the first time they did it really well. So I'm not sure that I can say that it had a big cultural impact or a big emotional impact on me. It was, but I will say from a quality standpoint or from an emotional impact, I think it was more emotionally impactful to me than War of the Worlds.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, by far. So but I'm not sure if it was iconic though. That's the one word that I'm not sure.
You think it's less iconic than War of the Worlds?
No. Sorry, I'm just saying like as we move our way towards the top, it's probably still in the bottom 6 for me from an iconic standpoint.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, but I love Minority Report.
I do too.
As a sci-fi film, I don't think it's in my top 10, but it'd probably be top 20.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a very interesting concept.
Yes.
It's a Philip K. Dick story, right? So you're going to get an interesting concept either way. But I don't know, it was a fun struggle to watch the whole idea of convicting people for crimes they haven't committed yet.
Right.
And, the precog, and she was a really interesting character. And that scene where she just starts screaming out of nowhere for no reason. I don't know why. You haven't seen it. I'm sorry. That scene where she just starts screaming.
It's creepy.
It is creepy.
I feel like I need to see it now.
It reminds me of
You should.
that kind of scene reminds me of Battlestar Galactica when they had the people that the cyborgs that controlled the ships.
Yeah.
Like, and some of them would start freaking out and like flailing around. That's similar type of concept.
Yeah, Caitlin says its concept of being judged before you had done the crime and whether you can change your future was interesting.
Yes, very interesting. Again, very well done film.
Yeah, but iconicness, like all the stuff we talked about, it's I feel like it's not top 6.
No.
You probably don't care either way. Right?
I'll put it at
I
8.
would. 8 sounds good for now.
Yeah,
I can roll with 8.
Okay.
So far we've got
Report goes to 8.
the BFG sitting at 12, War of the Worlds sitting at 10, and Tom Cruise sitting. Tom Cruise. Minority Report. It says Tom Cruise on the top of the picture. Minority Report sitting at 8.
Cool.
We'll pick odd numbers eventually. We'll see how we go. Okay, our next film that we're going to talk about, this ought to be an interesting one, is AI, which was originally meant to be a Stanley Kubrick film.
Oh my goodness, that would have been nuts.
Yeah.
It would have been, yeah.
Oh my
And he didn't get
gosh.
to make it before he died, so this is Spielberg's interpretation of Stanley Kubrick's story.
Which I feel like doesn't really make sense. Like,
It's an odd pairing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Like, oh, well, we can't get Kubrick. Let's get, Spielberg. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird.
Well, he was probably a hero to some degree of
Oh, yeah.
Spielberg's.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of an honoring approach in that. Weird movie, though. Did you guys see it?
Once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long time
I
ago.
saw almost, we were talking about this before. I saw up to the part where Haley Joel Osment's character gets abandoned. And
you were done.
I was like, I'm out. It's like the dog dies kind of a thing. I'm like, it got me so sad. I was like, I can't watch this
Can't do it anymore.
I don't even know. When did it come out?
Okay, we keep getting that question, so I'm pulling up IMDb.
I'm like, was I a parent then?
Yeah.
It came out.
Late 90s,
Sorry.
I think.
Oh my
right?
gosh,
Like
it's giving me
maybe
the production.
97 or 96. Somewhere.
Here we go. It's giving me his producer list, which is like
Oh.
7 days
Insane.
long.
Yeah.
2001.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was a mum. So, yeah, that might have been why.
Yeah, it was a
Well done.
weird movie. I wasn't a parent when I saw it, so I didn't have that, but it'd probably be uncomfortable for me to watch now.
Yeah.
But it's just very strange. I remember it feeling kind of like it didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be.
Yeah, because it almost had like it could be a horror
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah. It had kind of the eeriness of a Kubrick film, but it had the look of a Spielberg film, which was disjointed to me.
There's we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but there's actually a really good Spielberg documentary on Netflix that you can go watch right now. And he actually talks about that, about stretching himself in specific areas. He didn't talk about AI specifically, but he was known as, he was getting pigeonholed as a certain type of director. Yeah. And then when he tried to branch out of that, he got a lot of pushback, like for example, The Color Purple. There, he was told, like, not your story, man, like, you shouldn't have done it. But I think that, like, he was able to keep moving down that path, and even though there's some misfires, maybe, like, I would call AI a misfire, so spoiler alert, I don't like it that much. But it has a certain level of iconicness in the development of a director. Because this is the same director that did Schindler's List later, which is not a Spielberg-esque film at all.
Munich.
Munich, exactly. So I think that it was kind of him moving along a path and not quite figuring out what that path looked like yet. But so it's not my favorite. But it has some iconicness to it.
It does. I mean, even in just the whole process of starting as a Kubrick film and then becoming a Spielberg film.
Yes.
Chris Wetzel says it fell victim to production company interruptions and Spielberg trying to piece it together. Caitlin says it was really long, but her husband loved it. She says it was sad. Once again, not iconic, really. Yeah. Seeing as she forgot that it existed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know what I would get this movie confused with, which is so stupid and weird? Bicentennial Man.
Oh my god.
Yes.
But you know what? Is it because of the poster?
I don't know what it is. I get it confused all the time.
I remember it being similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they came out
like the same
around
year.
the same time too.
Yeah. Very strange.
But Yeah. Yeah, iconicness, I don't feel like going real high on this one. For me, I'd probably put this down to maybe 9.
I'm good with 9. I was gonna say 9 too.
Sure.
Feel alright about 9?
I think it's somewhat more iconic than War of the Worlds, which seems like a Spielberg film, right? Whereas
Yeah.
at least this one has the advantage of him breaking out of that mold a little bit.
Well, we talked about like cultural impact and stuff like that.
Yeah.
AI definitely pushed more buttons
Exactly.
than War of the Worlds did.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, we'll drop it at 9 for now. We can reevaluate later.
Okay.
Monty went ahead and dropped what might be our favorite comment on this whole episode.
Uh-oh.
Just a little reminder, Indiana Jones 5 comes out on July 10th, 2020.
It's true. I don't know whether to be excited or depressed.
I know. Crystal Skull is sitting over on the floor somewhere
Yeah.
across the studio, so
Yeah.
we'll have to see.
We're gonna burn it later.
Chris Wetzel says Robin Williams is in both movies. Robin Williams is in AI?
I don't remember that, but
Wait.
it wouldn't surprise me.
I know
Is
Jude
he the
Law is
dad?
in it.
Is he the dad?
I don't know. I'm looking right now.
Okay. Jude Law is in it. What does he
Yeah,
do?
Jude Law was in it. Chris Wetzel says yes. I think he was the dad.
And
Wow.
Jude Law is the one that abandons the kid, because I can see that happening.
Well, he's kind of like Jude Law is another android,
Yeah.
and he's kind of like his.
Which I could see that happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's his
That happens a
preview,
lot.
His preview from Jarvis. He's like, I'll do this first,
Yeah.
and then I'll be able to do Jarvis.
No, that's Paul Bettany.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They sound the
Yeah.
same though.
Wasn't it Jude Law at one point in time, and they switched it to Paul Bettany?
No,
They just sound the same.
They're
I
the
thought
same
the
guy.
same. I was like, oh, that's Jude Law.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Nope. Yeah, maybe so.
oh, I think Paul Bettany's way better.
Well, voice though, the voice sounds the same to me.
I don't. Paul Bettany's
Mm.
great, but Jude Law has been in some cool stuff too.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm looking at IMDb and I don't see Robin Williams on the cast list.
Is he in Bicentennial Man?
Definitely, he is Bicentennial Man.
He is Bicentennial Man.
So, but we don't have to argue about that. That's okay.
Which, if that's what Chris is thinking of, then it only proves our point about
Yeah.
why we all thought that movie was the same deal.
That
He says
poster.
the weird cartoon character talking to Haley Joel Osment at the end.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it was like a cameo.
Oh, okay.
Oh, huh.
Gotcha.
Right on.
Cool. So yeah, AI not working its way too high up the list.
Number 9.
So that's okay.
We don't have anything in the top 6 yet.
Mm-mm.
And
It's not worthy because we know.
We know
We
what's
know what's
coming.
coming.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know if this next one's gonna crack the top 6 or not either.
Okay.
I love this movie to death, but I know
it might not be
I'm
iconic.
I'm not the only one, but a lot of people have problems with this movie, and it is The Lost World.
The
Jurassic
Lost
Park.
World.
Yes.
Okay.
It's harder for sequels to be iconic
Yeah.
because
That's true.
the original is like, oh, that's
Especially when
iconic.
you're a sequel to Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah. I remember seeing the lines. That was the first movie I ever remember seeing a huge line outside of the movie theater wrapping around the building, and I was like,
For Jurassic
yeah,
Park.
that was the first movie I remember going, holy smokes, like
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's like common.
But the Lost World, so is the Lost World the one that starts out on the scene on the beach with the little tiny dinosaurs?
That's not a good sign.
Is that what it is?
That's not a good sign when you're like,
Is
so is
that
the
the-
Lost World the one? And no, it's not. That's Jurassic Park 3.
Okay. Because that was such a creepy scene. That's the only thing I remember from, I think, either of these films.
Wait. That's Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, the one on the island with the little dinosaurs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And the little
Jurassic
girl
Park
finds
3.
them and she's like, oh, they're cute. And they start like trying to bite her. And you're
The
like, oh my gosh, what's
parasailing
that?
one? The parasailing one. That's 2, isn't it?
This movie's clearly in the bottom six.
I know. I just remember, like, I don't even care that kid got eaten or whoever got eaten. I
Yeah.
still want a parasail. That's the, I forget which one that
The
is.
parasailing one is the number 3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah,
Oh.
because that's the kid who gets
Okay.
lost in the jungle, and then William H. Macy and
Okay, I like that one.
Tay Leone and Sam Neill go in and save him.
Yeah.
I
Well,
liked it too. It's the
yeah.
weakest, but I liked it.
I like Taylor Leone.
Who's in the Lost World?
Jeff Goldblum. It's like Jeff Goldblum's Jurassic Park film.
Is
He's
that
the
the
hero.
one where the thing starts falling off the cliff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's the actress? Red hair actress, right?
Julianne Moore.
Yes. So phenomenal actors,
Yeah.
iconic actors. Even
Yes.
maybe he's not so much an iconic film.
Well, when you're the sequel to Jurassic Park, it's hard to be an iconic film.
This is true.
It's kind of
So-
like the third child when you've got like the kid who's like the superstar, A student. All the other kids are like, yeah, they got good grades.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I want to do some shifting.
You
Because
do?
I don't think it's less iconic than a remake of War of the Worlds or even AI.
You don't think it's...
So would you put
You
it
think
at
it's
9?
more iconic?
I would move AI and War of the Worlds over and put Lost World at 9.
9, huh?
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can...
All right, so War of the Worlds is moving to 11. AI is moving to 10. And we're going to drop the Lost World in at 9.
Nice.
So, Cody.
They're all super dark posters.
I just said
Yeah.
your brother's name and you didn't even respond.
Yeah, no,
Cody chimes in and says Lost World has Vince Vaughn, which is a good point because Vince Vaughn was great in The Lost World.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even remember
I don't
that
remember
either.
him.
That's pretty iconic.
And it wasn't that long after Swingers, so it was kind of a random casting.
Yeah.
I guess I need to rewatch it.
You should.
That's what
It's good, man.
This is coming down to.
It's definitely good. So, and Chris Wetzel makes a good point. He says the original showed that CGI dinos were possible, but the Lost World showed what they could really do.
Ooh,
And
that's a
it
good
did.
point.
It did step up the game. It did.
Well, it's
look
probably
better.
good that we moved it up to 9 then.
Caitlin says you guys don't even remember what happened in the Lost World, but you do remember War of the Worlds. I remember what happened in the Lost World.
Yeah.
I remember War of the Worlds. It's like my dad has certain movies that he watches all the time.
Mhm.
So like just hanging out with my dad, it's like, all right, cool. Like,
Yeah.
and that's one of them. Tremors is another one. So
Tremors.
Yeah.
Tremors.
Yeah. I love the Lost World.
Yeah?
I don't love it more than Jurassic Park, but I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great film.
I'm not saying it's bad. But
So, Caitlin's all about Tremors. She's really excited
Nice.
about that reference. So, okay, let's go on to our next film here. So, hey, speaking of Jurassic Park,
Ooh.
Jurassic Park is our next film.
I think it's going to be the first one.
I'm
in
going
the
to go
top
ahead and
6.
slap this in the top
Yep.
3 right now.
Yeah.
I'd put it there.
But
Yeah, it's in the top 3
Yeah.
for sure.
let's talk about it. We haven't talked about Jurassic Park a lot on our show,
No, we haven't.
which seems like a crime.
You know what? Okay, so here's the thing. You take a movie that has fictional representations of real creatures that we've actually never seen before,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You take every kid's favorite thing,
Seriously.
and then you put it on screen in a way that's like, that looks like it's real.
Right.
And then the way that he films it, the way that he shoots it, the reveal of the, what do they call it, brontosauruses with the long necks,
Brachiosaurus.
brachiosauruses. Yeah, you have kids, so you know.
No, I just remember that from seeing the movie.
But that reveal
My
is
kid doesn't know the
filmed-
real names of the dinosaurs except for T-Rex.
Oh.
Okay, so just think of that scene, right?
Uh-huh.
We're seeing their reaction before we ever see the dinosaurs,
Mm-hmm.
and think of the letdown that could be.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, then you turn it around and it's the dinosaurs, and you're like, wow, those are terrible. Like,
Yeah.
then the whole scene is like a joke,
Right.
but it doesn't play as a joke at all, because when you see them, you're like, wow, those dinosaurs are really there, and it looks like what I've seen in all the books and everything. And then he tells a really compelling story throughout with very interesting characters, all dealing with very interesting things. So I think it actually is just not only a phenomenal film, but it's so iconic because it's a good story. Plus, he's added dinosaurs that look. So he's pushed the technology, he's pushed the story, the actors pushed themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can keep going, but
No, it's a great film. I feel like just thinking back, what was around, like what dinosaurs did we see? And I'm thinking of like Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
Land Before
And
Time.
That what I mean, like things that weren't animated.
Oh, that
Yeah.
weren't animated.
So, looking at that, the only thing I can remember is Land of the Lost, and that was just kitschy garbage,
exactly.
And it's like then you have this,
yes,
which was at its time amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
And to see them, the only times we would see dinosaurs would be like in Land of the Lost, or if we go to a museum and
Yep.
we maybe see some kind of replica or something, but we never got to see them moving and see
Yeah.
humans interacting with them. Like
Yeah.
that was amazing. Jeff Goldblum was amazing.
Yeah.
And the story, and of course the score, because I'm big on scores.
Oh,
I
So-
love that score.
Yes.
The
so
theme is so
good.
The
good.
score is amazing, and I feel like what I love about a lot of Spielberg films is that he works with John Williams, and so like yeah, those are kind of the things that do it when you get Spielberg together with John Williams. It's
amazing.
kind of magic.
Yeah. In fact, we just got a comment from Nerd Alert Creative. With the most iconic films, you can't think about Spielberg without thinking about John Williams.
Yep.
You can't. No, you can't do it. And it's so much so that my cousin I'm like 12 years old. I'm hanging out with my cousin. He's also 12. And he makes a joke about Forrest Gump and then starts to go, do 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 do. And I'm like, dude, that's not Forrest Gump, bro. Like, instantly knew. I instantly knew, like, that is Jurassic Park. You know, like, you just knew it right off the bat. Like, that's Jurassic Park. I'll still find myself humming that song in my head, that theme in my head from time to time.
Yeah.
It is perfect.
Well, it's obviously iconic to me because that's one of the few movie themes that I'll sit down at a piano and just play.
Oh, nice.
Like that one, Superman, the movie.
Ooh, yeah.
The Man from Snowy River, for some reason. I learned that when I was young. And
Yeah.
it's a catchy theme.
I think that it might move up. We have it at 3.
Yeah.
I think it might end up moving up.
Jurassic Park is one of, for me, I'm going to look up the year that it came out.
93, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 93?
I'm old, so I was like in high school, and I remember that. Yeah, I just remember that going, my goodness, like what is happening?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm old too then, because I was
Yeah.
also in high school.
Old people? Yeah.
I would have been 12, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know, the earliest version of like movie hype that I can remember was actually Tim Burton's Batman movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I very, very
89,
vividly
89.
remember the hype for Jurassic Park also.
Yeah.
I remember hearing somewhere, we didn't have the internet back then, we had like Entertainment Tonight and magazines and stuff like
You guys
that.
used to
TV
watch that show
guide.
all the time.
I know.
As a kid, I'd be like watching it. Was the trailer coming out?
Maybe we had Access Hollywood by then, I don't know. But
Exactly.
or Extra. Anyway.
We can keep going.
Yeah. Anybody who's in their 20s watching this show is like, shut
Oh,
up.
Yeah,
no.
exactly. I
But,
actually had to explain what a Rolodex was to a college student today. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's special.
it makes me feel real old.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
It's kind of a hard thing to explain, too.
I know.
It's
I was
an
like,
awkward thing.
it was the thing with it spins and there was paper.
Yeah. I know
Monty says,
someone
what's a
who-
magazine?
What's a magazine?
Yeah.
But I remember the hype. I remember hearing the talk about the dinosaurs being CGI
Yeah.
and thinking, that's ridiculous. That's going to look stupid. And
Yeah.
then seeing the first trailer, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember the trailer for this doing something. I'd never seen it done before, and now almost every trailer ever does this.
Yeah.
So it used to be that when there was a movie trailer, you would get all of the action and all of the scenes and the shots from the movie, and then it would end with the name of the movie. And that was it. Jurassic Park was the first one that I can ever remember putting a quick shot after the name of the movie. And they had, it was the shot of the T-Rex coming up on the rearview mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being totally startled by that. Because I loved movie trailers and nobody had ever done that before. I was
Yeah.
like, can you even do that? I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Was that a different movie?
And now they all do that.
Yeah, I think just for it being iconic, thinking of how many times that scene with the water shaking, like
The
how
puddle,
many
the
times
ripples in
that's
the puddle.
been done
Yeah.
on everything.
Yeah.
So for that, it's just had such a huge impact that people they probably don't even have to have ever seen the film to go, oh, that's from that thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then fast forward to today, this is one of those franchises that is spawning a whole new franchise.
Yeah. That's right.
A la Star Wars, you know?
Oh, for a second I was like, a la Star Wars. What are you talking about? It's like collaboration. Dinosaurs in space. I'm like, wait a minute.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs in
Not
space.
real good.
I would love to hear the John Williams soundtrack for that film.
I will
Totally.
totally download it on Spotify immediately.
I'll say one more thing about its iconicness. And I forgot what I was going to say.
Was it the phone and the poop?
No, no, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. But I mean, there's even more iconic scenes like the when he's leaning on the Triceratops and it's
Yeah.
breathing.
Yeah.
Like oh, I know what I was gonna say. They have since come out and said that some of these dinosaurs probably had feathers. And we don't even, and we've refused to believe it because we're like, no, we've seen them.
Yeah.
We've seen those dinosaurs. They're in that movie, so we are rejecting.
But even in that
science
movie, they did
based
say
on
that they
this
were
movie.
more closely related to birds.
They
than
did,
lizards.
yeah. It's just
But,
so
yeah.
funny that we're like, the movie is so iconic that we believe Spielberg over science. Like, nah, it's not the way dinosaurs looked. We've seen them.
We're like, yeah, right,
Yeah.
Dr. So-and-so.
Exactly.
Oh man. Chris Wetzel says, "Don't forget the Jurassic Park behind the scenes with James Earl Jones."
Ooh.
Did you guys see any of that? I didn't
No.
see that, but it sounds amazing.
If I did see it, I forgot it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
Chris.
want to see it.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderful. So yeah, obviously Jurassic Park is going to be way up there.
Yeah.
I just want to keep talking about scenes. I want to keep talking about like Life Finds a Way and the Chaos
Oh,
Theory.
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
Must Drive Faster and Clever Girl.
Yeah. All of those.
Everyone hold on to your butts.
Yeah.
And it's also like one of my favorite things that I've ever seen happen at a con is someone was driving a little tiny Jeep. It was an adult in a little kid Jeep and someone in a dinosaur suit chasing him. And I was like,
Awesome.
I love these. These are my people.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
epic.
And I know a lot of people have problems with Jurassic World.
Oh.
Caitlin talks about how it's really just a Chris Pratt vehicle and not even a good one because he doesn't get to make as many jokes as he does in other movies. But one thing I love about Jurassic World is how they have brought the actual T-Rex
Oh yeah.
from the Jurassic Park trilogy
Yeah.
into the new one.
Yep.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And from the trailers for the new movie, it looks like it'll be featured in another cool way. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Monty says his roommate made him a "Hold On to Your Butts" t-shirt.
Are you serious?
That's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
That would be a fun thing to have. So, okay, so we're going to put it at number 3 for now, with the understanding that it very well might move
It
up.
might move up. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see it moving back.
No,
So-
not gonna move back.
Okay, one last thing. Caitlin says, "Oh my gosh, I just thought of the When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth banner falling."
Yes.
Oh, that's true.
That is a great scene right there.
That's true. There are so many. Too many to talk about. Well, we'll have to do a whole episode on Jurassic Park. I mean,
Well, we might come back to more scenes as we figure out where it truly belongs.
Yeah.
So,
That's true. But for now, we're going to totally shift gears. We're going to go back to Robin Williams, and we're going to talk about Hook.
Rufio.
Yes.
Rufio.
Yes.
This was one of my favorite movies when
Yeah.
I was a kid. I think that's true of most people our age, right?
Maybe?
I loved
Really?
it. I don't
My
know if I'd say
wife
it's
loves
my
it. Her
favorite,
brother
but I
loves it.
loved it.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I dig it. I just don't know a lot of people who are like, oh, I love it.
Well, it's not one of my favorites now, but when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I think that might hurt the iconicness of it because for me, I think it leans more kid, maybe a
Yeah.
little less universal.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like as an adult now, the story of Pan having grown up and having lost his panness, and then saying no, like going back into who he is really, and
Yeah.
even the little kid like looking at him and messing with his face and then saying, "There you are."
Uh-huh.
That I think is such a cool idea to go back to this place where you're able to have fun, you're able to be excited about adventures.
Yeah.
And, so I think as an adult, it kind of is a little bit more special.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was, when I was a kid, I feel like the first time I saw it, it might have actually been a little bit above my head. Like just the whole concept of Peter having grown up and being, was it London when they start out?
I think so, yeah.
In London with
That's-
Wendy and everything. And
Yeah.
I don't think I understood that as a kid because the Peter Pan story, the classic, was so ingrained into my head. I'm like,
Right.
I wasn't old enough to get this different context. But
Right.
as it goes on, it works itself out. But Julia Roberts as
She
Tinkerbell.
was adorable. Oh, and you know what? This is coming up later, but I think it's in, oh man, E.T.
Oh no, we're
That-
not going to talk about ET.
What?
I'm just kidding.
No. I was gonna say in E.T. there's a scene where the mom is reading Peter Pan, and I was like, hey, that's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the shared universe.
It was
of
the
Steven
clapping
Spielberg.
one,
Hmm.
the clapping scene from Hook, but I mean it wasn't from Hook, but
Yeah, yeah,
that was the scene she was reading.
Yeah.
The book.
I really enjoyed Hook a lot. I think it did kind of. I mean, I want to eat the food at their feast.
Oh, I know. All that colorful food.
Yeah, like I think there was some really fun stuff that had to do with that. It was cool. The production design was really cool. That's what I really enjoyed about it. It was like it felt like a movie that was made for kids in a fun way, but like the production design was really solid from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah.
And fantasy can be all over the place with production design, but I think they did a really good job. So I don't know how iconic it is necessarily, because there's nothing about it that makes me feel like it changed culture or it had something really important to say that wasn't said before.
It feels like it might have been a bit ahead of its time, because this whole idea of taking these iconic stories and putting them in a different context,
Yes.
we're inundated with that.
Oh yeah, Maleficent and all the other
Once
Disney-
Upon a Time, and like there's just a ton of it, and not all of it is very good.
Right.
But so there wasn't any of that happening back then.
No.
And this is really good.
Yeah.
So you're saying this should
Are you saying top
reboot it?
6? Yeah, where are you putting it?
I'm feeling a little bit more like 7.
Yeah,
I am
put
too.
it there.
Let's
Okay.
put it at 7.
All right. We will put it at 7. A few comments from our viewers. Monty says Hook was his first introduction to live action Robin Williams. His first Robin Williams movie being Aladdin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Aladdin was awesome.
So that's a good point. I'm old enough to take Robin Williams all the way back to like Mork and Mindy,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and Popeye and stuff like that.
Oh,
But
Popeye!
and Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Mrs.
Morning,
Doubtfire's
Vietnam.
great, Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I've seen Good Morning Vietnam, but I know about it. Caitlin says the story of Peter and Wendy and her being old was one of the first sad things that she can remember hitting her in a movie as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Chris Wetzel said, cool concept, not one that was done before. Inventive, but not too sure if it's iconic. Caitlin says it didn't change anything. So I feel like 7.
Yeah.
It feels more iconic than Minority Report or any of these other movies behind it.
I think so. I think I could make an argument for swapping Minority Report and Hook at 7 and 8. But yeah, I think we should just keep it where it is for now.
Cool. Okay. So, quick update for those of you listening and not seeing what we're doing here. So far, we have the BFG sitting at number 12, War of the Worlds at 11, AI at 10, Lost World at 9, Minority Report at 8, Hook at 7, and the only film that has cracked our top 6 is Jurassic Park, and we've got it at 3.
Yeah. Which is a good time for me to mention maybe the way that you guys can support us on Patreon.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, as you guys, if you listen to the show frequently, that you've already heard us talk about this, but there's one of the ways to support the show is to support us on Patreon. Patreon is a service that allows fans to support creators like us. It also allows us to show our appreciation to our supporters by offering additional exclusive content to our Patreon supporters, and you can only get that content through Patreon. Right now on Patreon, you can listen to Daryl and I come up with some fan theories about geek films. We also had an epic Network 1901, The Story Geek Showdown, where we break down all things The Last Jedi, either that people loved or hated, so definitely check that out too. And of course, check out Network 1901. They're a good sister channel of ours. They're a fantastic channel, so go check that out. And it only takes $3 a month to unlock the exclusive content, but that actually helps us out a ton, and it's lower than the price of a comic book. So you can do that for just once a month, and it really, really helps us out. There's some other tiers as well if you want to support us some more, but all you have to do is do $3 for that. So go head on over to www.thestorygeeks.com and sign up there, basically. It's super easy, and every time we release new content, you'll be notified.
And we will have a special Patreon version of this actual show as
We
well.
We will. We're recording, yeah.
Which we will not be recording live. So those of you watching live, go subscribe to Patreon so you can get that too.
Yeah, thestorygeeks.com.
That's right. We'll be talking about our top 5 Spielberg geek films.
Yeah.
So, personal preference, no rules. Cool. Well, let's dive back in. We're getting into, I think, some more big, heavy hitters now. But before we do, I want to bring up something now because I think we're going to hit some films that really exemplify it. Spielberg, in his geek films, especially the early ones, always has a through line of positivity.
Yeah.
They're either very hopeful or they're about family or about love. So that's one of the things I love so much about his early work. You don't see it as much in some of the later films, but definitely in Hook and definitely in these films that we're about to talk about. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through as well.
Sounds good to me.
So, and speaking of films about family, the first one we're going to talk about is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This is a big deal for me.
Yeah?
This is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, well, you know that
Raiders
Indiana
of the Lost
Jones...
Ark.
Yeah, Indiana Jones is... Well, Indiana Jones in general, though, is my favorite of all time in terms of...
You can see those of you watching, you can see the poster sitting
and what
behind
you can't
us here.
see is there's actually a Temple of Doom poster on the other wall over there.
But no Last Crusade poster.
No, you know what? My brother owned the Last Crusade poster. I don't know what he did with it.
Okay.
I might have to buy one.
So, well, Sandra, what do you think of the Last Crusade?
I remember seeing the Indiana Jones films as a kid, and I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark recently, and I've been meaning to rewatch them. I would put it on the top 5 for sure. Where, I don't know. I'm not as much of a fan as Indiana Jones as I am of the other Spielberg films. Sorry.
It's okay.
Not that I dislike them.
No apologies for opinions on this show.
I'd put it like at a 5. Yeah.
Out of 6?
Well, like what?
On the list.
Yeah.
I was trying to make a joke, but so Jay, talk a little bit more about that too. I know Raiders is your favorite movie of all time. We know that, but
but in the original trilogy, of which there are only 3 movies, and there's not a 4th movie that was thrown across the room earlier.
What a weird thing to bring up.
Yeah,
it's random.
No, but the first 3 movies of Indiana Jones, I think, are all pretty close. I mean, I do prefer Raiders, but both Temple of Doom, which I think a lot of people think is like a full point less on the scale, if not more, I still love that film, and I love this film. So
yeah.
This film did some things that I think were pretty extraordinary. One, it brought in a character's father. It showed the character as a youngster, and both of those things were not cheesy. They didn't interrupt the normal flow of what you thought about his character.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain extent that was just fantastic. They also brought back in the concept of Nazi Germany, which is like the villains of villains, right? Like they're the worst. And so I just thought all of that stuff was done pretty seamlessly. There's a nice twist in this film that I didn't see coming at first. The concept of legacy that you love love it. Very much embedded in this film.
Yeah,
so I can't say enough good things about this. I don't even know if I could come up with a negative. Okay, so I could come up with one negative that's a through line of the Indiana Jones series, and that is that their female characters are not well done.
Yeah.
That's not surprising for the time, though.
Exactly.
And that might be why it doesn't resonate as strongly for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It might be. Yeah. But that's really the only negative. And growing up, I wouldn't even have noticed it. Yeah. Right? Because it wasn't something that I was necessarily paying attention to. Yeah. Now, as an adult, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, they're not really great female characters here. But other than that, I think the films are brilliant.
Yeah, this one's huge for me. I mean, I don't think I saw Raiders or Temple of Doom in the theater.
Okay.
So I think Last Crusade was my first Indiana Jones film in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it so vividly, the tank scene at the end when he's crawling around the tank.
Yeah.
And the relationship with Sean Connery. I just
Yeah.
it's good.
I won't continue.
Ah, I was ready for more. But yeah, I love this movie to death. For me, this would go pretty high. You were thinking 5,
I
right?
could go a little bit higher. Yeah,
You're
I'd
thinking
put it at
4?
4 works.
Yeah, I mean, I might even put it at 2.
I might even put it at 2, but
Yeah.
for now, why don't we park it at 4?
Okay.
And we will
There is
revisit.
one area where this film is very iconic that may or may not be known by everybody, but it is one of the first appearances of computer graphics on film.
In what way?
Oh, actually, you know what? I might be thinking of the Young Indiana Jones series. Isn't there a scene where the stained glass window popped? That's a Young Indiana Jones. Now I'm thinking about it.
Oh,
But that was one of the. I feel like it was one of the first appearances of CG. I'm gonna have to fact check that, but
okay. But speaking of Young Indiana Jones, that's another great point of the movie is the intro part with River Phoenix
yes.
Oh,
as
yeah.
Indiana Jones, which is just great. And then the transition to the boat and everything, and bowing the hat and bringing it back
Oh,
up.
that's so good.
Such a great movie. Some comments on this one. Caitlin says this is her favorite Indiana Jones film of all time. Monty says, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I haven't seen any of them.
Who said that?
Monty.
Monty. I don't think we can be friends anymore.
Oh.
Oh, that's mean.
You can sit at my table. It's all right.
So, Chris Wetzel's in your camp. He says Raiders is his favorite, but he hasn't seen The Last Crusade. So,
It's on Hulu.
Chris, get on it. Go see it. It's on Hulu. That's right. I'll bring it to church. You can borrow it from me. You got to see it. Monty says, I have failed you. No, you haven't. It's fine. Caitlin says the father-son dynamic is so hilarious. Serious hero paired with goofy civilian movies. Oh, like Live Free or Die Hard is another example of that. And she points out that they brought a reverence for God in this one, which the Temple of Doom did not have. I think that is, for me, that element of it, to a degree, is why I like Raiders and Last Crusade significantly more than I like Temple of Doom.
Mm.
And we won't even talk about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
What?
But, sorry, I made that up.
Is that a thing?
I made it up. I made it up.
Yeah.
It's a dumb idea for another movie.
movie.
But just that degree of hope. And then I think something I love about Steven Spielberg's early work is his tendency to have these huge themes and these huge things that we're dealing with, but be very reserved in how much of it we get to see. So you're talking about the Holy Grail and that whole concept, but really all we get to see is a cave and an old knight and a bunch of cups. And it's completely satisfying.
I do remember that scene where he's picking what it would look like and his thought process for that.
Yeah.
And then, oh man, anyone who's been to any sort of like Christian camps probably seen the Indiana Jones thing with like the leap of faith, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there were some pretty iconic scenes in that film, for sure.
So, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was the first film to have an all-digital composite.
An all-digital composite.
Yeah.
What was it?
You know, I've been trying to look that up, and I cannot find it.
Okay.
But that
was it the Knights? Was it that dude's face getting old and melting? Or?
No. I think that was it. I'm pretty sure. I felt like there was a character in the stained glass window who gets up and walks out of the stained glass window in like a vision or something like that he has. But it must have been something else because I don't think see that in here. So.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So. Yeah. Last Crusade. So good. So we'll park it at number 4 for now, and we will move forward because, man, these last few, they're doozies. And we'll continue the Indiana Jones train.
Poor Monty.
With Temple of Doom. Sorry, Monty.
Yeah.
You should watch these movies, though. They're great.
Yeah, definitely. This weekend.
Don't watch anything that has the word
Black
skull
Panther.
in the title.
Plus, yeah. No.
Don't do it.
Don't do that.
So,
Actually,
Temple of Doom.
You might watch that one first and then see how terrible it is compared to the other ones. No,
It'd be like it's like starting with the prequels.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just not the same. It's not the same.
Sandra, talk about Temple of Doom.
That is one. Is that the one with Ka?
It's
Kali.
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 Yep.
Kali
Excuse
Ma.
me.
Yeah, Kali Ma.
Yeah.
They do the chanting and everything.
And the heart thing that just looks kind of
That's
weird and doughy. Like,
that's the thing
Yeah.
that sours the whole movie for me. Is that's what I remember most when I was a kid was
Yeah.
that scene where like the dude reaching into the chest and pulling out the
Yeah,
heart, and I'm
yeah.
like, that creeped me out when I was a
Yeah.
kid.
So I didn't see Temple of Doom until after I had seen. So Last Crusade came out in '89, so I was like 8 years old. So a lot of these I saw delayed, anyways. But I saw Raiders first, then I saw Last Crusade, and then my parents finally said, like, now we think you're old enough you can watch Temple of Doom for all of these reasons. So it was the one that I saw the third of the three that I watched.
I specifically remember watching Temple of Doom and thinking to myself, I don't know that I'm supposed to be watching this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this might be a problem.
I will say that it's weird to watch Raiders and then to watch The Last Crusade and then to watch Temple of Doom because the tone is very similar from Raiders to The Last Crusade. You would assume if you just saw those two films
Yeah.
that he wasn't fighting. He's always fighting Nazis. And that was always his enemy.
yeah.
You would assume that it was always like kind of a good time, right? Like there's some supernatural elements, but it's kind of a good time.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom is a much darker film, and it has a very strange intro because it's like this. All of a sudden, it's taking place in China. There's a musical number. It's sort of the strangest Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Besides the things that shouldn't be mentioned ever again. But I still really enjoy it because of some of that darkness and having it as an alternative to the other two. I think it still fits in the same world, but it's different.
Well, I feel like a lot of the imagery that we get of Indiana Jones with the whip and like a lot of like the big hero imagery actually comes from this film.
Yeah.
And not from Raiders. So like the scene with the bridge when he's fighting all those guys.
Yep.
The mining car scene.
Mining car is a great scene.
And just a lot of the big hero shots and stuff like that. A lot of that comes from this movie and not from the other ones. Like if you go ride the ride at Disneyland,
yes,
you feel like you're in Temple of Doom.
Until the end, yeah.
Until the end, yeah.
That's true though. That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has much more of that kind of feel.
So, and that's weird because visually it captures Indiana Jones, but story-wise, I don't think it does it nearly as well as the other two.
Not as well as the other two, but
it's technically a prequel, which is really confusing.
Yeah, it is because the first Raiders is supposed to take place in 1936, and Temple of Doom takes place in 1935. And I think I've mentioned this on another show. Oh no, I actually mentioned this on our friends the Story Cauldron podcast. I'm pretty sure that the line from Raiders, wherein he says "expert in the occult," comes from him saying that he's had this experience in India.
Okay.
I think it's India, right?
I think
India, Pakistan.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched it.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it's been a long time since you've watched it because I feel like you guys know so much about it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
We have a ridiculous ability to retain
guess.
useless
Well,
information.
I've seen it so many times, so it's just all in there, yeah.
A few comments that have been thrown out about this one. We've had quite a few. Caitlin says thumbs down for Temple of Doom. Chris Wetzel says there's a debate on that says Spielberg may have directed Poltergeist.
Oh, he wrote it, so.
Oh, interesting. Monty said I did see part of Crystal Skull. Unimpressed. Don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of that.
Never heard of that film.
Yeah.
Probably a fan film or something.
Caitlin says the jelly heart getting ripped from the chest
Yeah.
traumatized her as a kid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll do that to you.
Chris Wetzel simply says Raiders.
I don't disagree.
Okay, so I will say I think Temple of Doom, even for just the hero shots of Indiana Jones, I feel like it bumps it to number 6.
I'm down with that. I can go
Yeah.
with
You
number
okay
six.
with that? Okay. Whoops. This is audio gold. Okay. All right. Correctly placed at number 6.
So right now our top 6, we have Temple of Doom at 6. 5 is still an open slot. We have Last Crusade at 4, and then Jurassic Park at 3, and then 2 and number 1 are both open slots.
Yep. I feel like some stuff
I'm
might get
holding out.
shifted.
I'm holding out for sure.
Oh, we have some heavy hitters.
Oh yes, we do. Some really, really, yeah. Really
I
good
feel
ones.
like we might have the biggest heavy hitter to talk about right now.
Mm.
E.T.
Woo!
The
Single-handedly
extraterrestrial.
saved Reese's Pieces.
Was
Oh,
it in
that's
danger?
true.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Supposedly it was like tanking as a candy, and then boom. And my husband loves it, so I feel like I'm very happy with the legacy of this film.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've given him his favorite candy.
I remember crying at this movie when I was a kid.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
What made you cry?
All of it?
Like, all of it? Well,
It's
there's
like,
so many
it's
scenes.
He's in
crazy
the
sad
basket.
for a long time, and then it's crazy happy, and
Yeah.
then, but still crazy sad.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
oh, man, the heartstrings.
What I love about a lot of the films that Spielberg either directed or is attached to is it has like it's kid driven, so the
Yes.
kids
Yeah.
are
It's got that sense of wonder.
yes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and it has to be kids because if an adult were acting that way, I guess it wouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
But so you have these kids who are willing to, you know, get this alien and be like, yeah, come on over
Right.
and hang
Right.
out, and yeah, E.T. was just such a great film.
Yeah.
You know, I have not gone back to watch it in a really long time. And I know that it's super iconic. And I'm not going to argue with anyone for it being iconic. But for some reason, I remember seeing it as a kid. And I remember thinking, like, it's good. But it just stopped at it's good. It never went to it's great. It never, for whatever reason, it never got there for me. I think it might have been because I was pretty terrified of aliens as a kid.
Oh,
So that
that'll
might have
do
had
it.
something to do with it. Like, just
Was it because you saw aliens?
No, because I was terrified as a really little kid. This is a really old reference, and no one will get this because we just asked you about this the other day. But I was super
Remember,
scared.
we're both older than you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, of the Yip Yips on Sesame Street. I was
Oh,
terrified.
really?
Oh.
They would come on, and I would leave the room. I would run out of the room as a kid. So I don't know what it is. I probably have been abducted by aliens at some
Oh,
point.
stop.
And it is a repressed memory now. Anyways.
So,
But I'm assuming you're both going to say that it's super iconic.
This is Spielberg
yeah.
to me.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it's the logo for Amblin Entertainment.
Yes, it is.
And
This is the Spielberg at his best for
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
I feel like even to this day, like I cannot meet anyone named Elliot and not want to say Elliot
Yeah.
or like, ouch, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of iconic moments, especially the bike flying scene. The two of them, they're just great. Like you've got these kids who are not only do they have an alien, but they could like evade the cops and just like fly. That's rad.
Yeah.
So
And all those woods, like right
Yeah.
by their houses. I'm like, I wanted to live there.
yeah.
I remember watching this as a kid. And this is one of a handful of movies that made me feel this way. Like there was Goonies,
Mm-hmm.
there was Back to the Future. And when I watched these movies, I felt like that was the world that I lived in.
Yeah.
Like, this is my life.
Yeah.
But all these amazing things are happening to them. But the world that they built, the neighborhood that these kids lived
Suburban
in,
neighborhood.
and,
Yeah.
and their friendships,
Mm-hmm.
it was like it felt very real to me.
Yeah.
And it resonated very heavily.
Yeah.
But there's so much in this. There's so much hope. There's family.
Mm.
There's love. There's pet ownership. Maybe not quite. But, and then this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier, where Spielberg introduces us to this huge, huge, huge thing,
Mm-hmm.
but only gives us a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know? It's about the relationship between Elliot and E.T. It's not about this grand existence of extraterrestrials.
Right.
So, which is true in Close Encounters too, which we'll spoiler.
I
we'll
will
get
say
there, but-
that as far as iconicness goes, I feel like I'm not sure of another movie that's done this, but it spawned a genre of like
Yeah.
kid exploration of new things. that
Totally.
were- I mean, I think like Stranger Things owes its heritage to E.T.
Yeah.
For
right?
sure.
So
And there's a bunch of movies from the 80s that do too. There's a movie called The Explorers,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Absolutely.
So, well, the comments. Let's look at some
Yeah,
comments.
while you
about
guys do that,
this.
I'm gonna go get a cord for my computer.
Okay. Caitlin, at the risk of sounding easily traumatized, says E.T. traumatized her too as a kid. The scene of the scary guys in suits coming in to grab him scared her. Yeah, that is a scary scene. Mm-hmm. Just that whole home invasion concept.
It has like so many different... Because it's not just a film about aliens. It's also the film about like government coming in and you know, separating even the child. Like he has to get kind of taken care of because he's getting sick, and so is E.T.
Yep.
That's all happening, and then just like the child adventures, things that kids get into, you know. And if it weren't an alien, it's like you've got this kid who's over here.
Yeah.
And you're hiding him, and like the whole scene where he gets drunk, E.T. gets drunk, so then the kid gets drunk.
Oh yes.
That is just...
And all the frogs and...
Yeah, all the frogs kissing the girl.
Yes.
Everything. So it felt like it was a lot of different types of movies, but that was a little scary.
Yeah, and just that whole theme of the adults don't get it. Mm-hmm. You know, they just want to exploit everything and dissect him and do all that stuff. They don't understand the relationship. They don't understand the childlike wonder and
but the mom
the simplicity.
Yeah, so that was cool.
That's
like
true.
The family support there.
Chris Wetzel says it deserves to be in one of the top spots. I do not disagree. Caitlin says she thought the guys in the suits were aliens.
Oh.
I remember thinking that too. That does feel familiar to me. Chris mentions the psychic connection between Elliot and E.T.
Yeah.
He said he never picked up on it as a kid. Yeah, that's a big part of it. And then Caitlin says the huge thing, but a little bit of it reminds me of... sorry, I'm misreading that. A little bit of it reminds me of the girl in the red coat in Schindler's List.
Oh.
And how he has us focus on the tiny details of a huge tragedy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest, I have not seen Schindler's List.
What? Yeah. Okay, there's like a whole
And I'm going to be honest again, I'm not interested in changing that.
What? Oh.
Is that the worst thing I've ever said on this podcast?
Maybe. Okay, so...
Just because you don't want to be so sad? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I feel like you kind of...
I don't want to get bummed out.
Even if it's just for the score, because we talked about loving scores.
Well, I can buy the score on iTunes.
But, like, the moments that are attached to that. But there's an episode of Seinfeld where I think it's Jerry who hasn't yet seen Schindler's List.
That's right. Yeah.
And ends up seeing it, but, like, making out with his girlfriend instead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you got to see it. I believe that's on Netflix.
Is it now?
I just don't want to. I just don't want to be bummed out.
It's no. It's not just bummed out.
It's also very beautiful.
It's hard to watch, but you realize at the end of it that you're like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed to watch that. I didn't realize. In fact, I'll say this: a lot of people will talk about Passion of the Christ, and I was the same way. I was like, I do not want to watch Passion of the Christ. Yeah. Then I finally saw Passion of the Christ, and I went, oh, that's a pretty good film. Like I can see how that's really good. I don't want to watch it again, but like. But Schindler's List, I didn't feel that way. I was like, oh, wow, that's different.
Yeah.
I think that because he gets it right, where I don't think Mel Gibson got everything right. But he gets everything right in Schindler's List. Does that make sense? Sure. You have to see it. But
it's, I mean, I can totally get, like, yeah, it's, I'm going to be sad. But yet it has so many beautiful moments, and Oskar Schindler makes that movie hopeful, and makes it inspiring, and the end is so beautiful.
Yeah, the end is amazing.
Yeah, the end is just like, it's all the feels for sure, but you should see it. I think you should see it.
I'm not going to promise it's going to happen. I'm just not.
You see that, and I'll see Minority Report.
Another one that I haven't seen that will shock people that I actually do want to see is Shawshank Redemption.
Oh,
I haven't seen that either.
So good.
Really?
We can watch that together.
All right.
And we should do something on Stephen King.
Oh yeah.
I would love that.
Definitely.
That's true. King. We could do like geek movies of Stephen King or something.
Yeah.
Did he make any?
Well,
he made a few.
Has anybody adapted Stephen King's work yet?
like one or two, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He hasn't written that much though. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not very prolific.
um,
So where are we putting E.T.?
I'm gonna throw it out there for me. E.T.'s number one.
Oh wow.
If you guys want to argue with that,
Wow.
go ahead and
I
start
say-
arguing.
You can put it there for now.
Put it there for now, but I think that I'm going to argue with you.
Yeah, same.
When we get to Raiders.
Yeah.
Or some other film.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, let's talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
So Jay, go for it.
Well, okay, so this
Sorry.
this film to me is the best film of all time. It is paced extraordinarily well. There is no better film I'm aware of that has the sense of adventure that this film has. The opening sequence by itself is iconic.
Yes.
And I think that for me, it just is by definition a movie of all movies. It's just amazing to me. Like all of it's cool, and the fact that they got the character right. Tom Selleck was going to be originally cast.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
And yeah, it would not have worked, but we had Harrison Ford, and this is, I think, like Han Solo was iconic, but when he did Indiana Jones after being Han Solo, that's what solidified his career.
Yeah,
really.
as a scoundrel.
I know Harrison Ford doesn't seem to be the first choice for any of his iconic roles.
No, I know.
Because for Han Solo, it was supposed to be Peter Coyote, wasn't it?
Yes, it was somebody else. It was somebody else for sure.
Which was it? He was in E.T. He was like the head scientist in E.T.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk about launching a career. I think that Indiana Jones did more for Harrison Ford's career than even Star Wars did. Because remember, Empire Strikes Back came out after Raiders of the Lost Ark did. So all he had was Han Solo from the original Star Wars. From New Hope. But yeah, so it's by far. I used to cosplay as Indiana Jones before cosplay was a term.
I'm not gonna lie. I was at Disneyland with my family like a week ago.
Yeah.
I almost bought you a fedora.
Oh my god.
That would have been awesome. I would wear it right now.
So
what do you think, Sandra?
I mean,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I was gonna just say I think he's gonna put it at 1.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I've seen the films. I know what's coming, so I would let you put it where you want to put it. I'll argue for others, because remember now I'm coming from a horror background. So that's me. That was totally my jam. So
Chris Wetzel might jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah,
he's
a big horror
Chris,
fan.
do it.
Yeah.
So we can put it for 2. We can put it at 2 for now.
Well, let me say a
It's
few
gonna
things
shoot
about it.
for
So this one I feel is another example of his whole not having a giant concept and not showing us too much.
Yeah.
Even with when the ark gets opened at the end and all the demons fly around and the face melting, which scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be watching. This is a PG movie, I think. And,
it's before they had PG-13. But
fair enough. Yeah. But I'm just like, oh, frightening.
Yeah.
But so good.
Yep.
And yeah, you're right. The opening scene with the cave and the giant boulder. And
in the reveal of Indiana Jones. So they're walking through the jungle and the two guys are starting to plot against him. And we don't see his face, but we see he's looking at the map.
Uh-huh.
You know, and then he turns around, and then you're just like, "Whoa, who is this guy?" You know, like it's just and that's a credit to Spielberg.
Totally.
I mean, I do think it would like you can credit Harrison Ford for that as well, but that is just like, it is quintessential Spielberg movie making.
Yeah. Yeah. Caitlin mentions the switching of the bag of sand for the idol.
Yeah.
I totally remember that.
Yeah.
I don't think I got it as a kid. I'm like, because he's like preparing to do it, you know. He's he's like winding up, and I'm like, why don't you just do it? Like, I didn't get the whole speed factor when I was a kid that it had to be done like that.
A few fun facts too, just because I know so much about this film. I actually used to own the Art of Indiana Jones books that were collected and stuff. But the scene where he pulls out his gun and shoots the guy with the sword.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford was sick that day and had the stomach flu, and they were supposed to have. They actually have the storyboards for the whole fight sequence, but they didn't do the fight sequence because Harrison Ford was like, "Is it cool if I just take out my gun and shoot him because I don't feel good. And so like, yeah, let's just do that. So just cool stuff like that worked its way into like how Steven Spielberg had to go in the moment. Yeah, that's a great moment. Let's do that. Like, like it's just crazy. So
yeah, and I feel like maybe one of the reasons that Spielberg, because when we think about him, we think about these films.
Yes.
We don't think about so much the later work. Like, we don't think about, like, Bridge of Spies and Munich.
Right.
And,
which are great films.
Even the BFG and stuff like this. Yeah. We don't think about those as much. And I feel like, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I feel like he thrived a little bit better before we had all this technology.
Yeah.
Back in a time when you were more limited.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll get to this one next, but I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind for the first time today.
Yeah.
So I'll talk more about this then, but just to be able to tell a story like that at that time with the zero special effects computer resources that existed then, like everything was practical. You had to make it up.
Yeah.
He was just a master of telling a story with just people on a camera.
Yeah.
And then we'll put all this other cool stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
But like you talked about the reveal of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, like just those iconic moments.
Yep.
He was so good at creating that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I feel like he still is.
Yeah.
But we don't care as much anymore because there's all this other stuff attached to it now.
He was the director for his time in the early 80s, and he was creating films. I get the sense, I was born in 81, so I was born in the year this came out. And I get the sense that the early 80s was, and you can kind of tell from what you can see in Hollywood at the time.
Yeah.
It was this sense that it was like a revival of the potential for what we could do in the world, right? Mm-hmm. It was starting to be a time of, I think, economic prosperity for the middle class, and we had come out of the 70s, which was like, hippies and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like there was this thought process. It came along with a lot of bad things like greed and some of those, but like we are going to be the preeminent nation in the world, and we are going to bring forward this new culture. And so he kind of embraced that hope, but told stories that were bigger than life. And it was just captured so well for that time period in a way that I don't know that, you'd have to look at, for our time period today, you'd have to look at a completely different set of filmmakers, because even though he's amazing, it's not the right time for the amazing films that he had. If this came out now, we'd all be going, no way. There's no Mayan civilization. We would have seen this on YouTube.
That's about creation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The world's too small now.
It's too small. Yeah, the world's too small.
Yeah, it's true. Caitlin says, are we talking about George Lucas thriving without technology?
Well, him too.
Well, George Lucas partnered with Steven Spielberg for Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So.
And definitely did thrive without technology. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And did not so much thrive with technology.
Yeah. It was like, can we just go back to like walking trash cans?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna add some more stuff to this film.
Yeah. This is a total rabbit trail, but I watched a video on YouTube this week of special effects in movies that you may not realize were actually there.
Oh.
And there was one from A New Hope where it was the scene where they're raiding the Death Star, and the scene where the X-Wings are flying into the trench.
Oh, yeah.
And the wide shot of the Death Star, of the trench, right before they get there, is actually a matte painting.
Oh,
it's not a model.
They use matte paintings all the time.
And then they shot a laser across the screen, and that's the cut where it goes to the model, and you actually see them fly in.
That's so cool.
Because you wanted to see the stars and stuff in the background, and you couldn't do that with a model. And I was like, I never noticed that.
That was something that they used frequently back in both Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They used matte paintings a lot.
But just to do it so seamlessly like that, I never noticed that.
It's crazy.
I don't know if I could notice it now when I go.
There's a shot in A New Hope where I believe it's A New Hope, where there's a shuttle landing on the Death Star, and all of that's a matte painting, and you can't tell. It's all so detailed and so 3D in the way that it looks.
Yeah,
you just can't tell.
Caitlin says, "Bring back puppetry and makeup artistry."
Yeah.
She also
I'm a fan of the Kyoto brothers, so I'm down for some puppets.
There you go. She also says another example of how awesome it is when it's real is the White Walkers in Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
which I don't have that reference. I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh no, it's very well done. Yeah, Game of Thrones is I think Game of Thrones, because it's set in a fantasy world, it's definitely the show for its time now. Because in the 80s, it would have been seen as like, what in the world is? There's no hope in this show at all. But for now,
Isn't it kind of seen that way now too?
It is, but that kind of goes along with our culture, right? Like our culture.
We're all depraved. So
Yeah, exactly.
I've only seen one episode of Game of Thrones, and it was the first episode of season 1, and I was like, okay, yeah, and that like the last like 5 minutes, I was like, oh, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if I wanted more or if I was done. I don't know.
It's worse to read the books, so just FYI. I know it's a different conversation, but the books are even more intense because there's no suspension of disbelief. So when characters are going through a situation, there's for example some underage characters who go through some terrible things.
Yeah.
Well, there's a suspension of disbelief when you're watching the show because you're like, well, that actress, that actor, they're 28, right?
Yeah.
But when you're reading a book, there's no suspension of disbelief. This person's 14. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that, right? Like, it's just much more depressing, even than the show is.
Wow.
So, yikes.
Beautiful score, though.
Oh yeah, it's a really well done show.
Yeah.
So, and some new Star Wars movies will be directed by that crew that does Game of Thrones. So that'll be interesting.
Okay, we'll stop bumming us out. Let's get back. Let's get back to demons melting people's faces and Nazis and things like that.
No, such a hopeful way.
The fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blow up the Ark, Renee.
Okay, here's what I propose.
Yes.
Since I'm guessing you're gonna kind of defer to us on this one. Or,
Sure, go for it.
Here's what I propose.
Mm-hmm.
I say we put this at 2 for now.
Yeah.
And we'll let the viewers hash it out when we get to that
I say that's a good call.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
because we all have a different number one. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is gonna be good.
Okay.
It's gonna be real good.
All right. Well, let's talk about our last film before we do that. And our last film. Oh, Chris made a comment earlier that he said Jaws is part of this discussion, right? And
Nope.
It is not.
What? That just wrecked my number 1 spot. I'm like, he's officially a director here. So.
Well, I'm open to being convinced. So convince me that Jaws is a geek film.
Oh man, I feel like horror is it's a geek child, a darker one, but I feel like horror needs to be included in that. Now, who was your guest that you had on recently? And she was talking about horror films.
Megan.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Megan loves horror films.
Yes, so I was like, everything she was saying, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm shook because I was expecting Jaws to be on the list, and that was going to be my number 1.
Yeah. So I would say this. Horror is definitely associated with geeks, for sure. When I think about science fiction, fantasy, and comic books, a lot of horror will fit into comic books, and a lot of horror will fit into fantasy, depending on how you want to cut that. One of the reasons we don't talk about it that much is because neither of us like horror movies, so we're not part of that
subgenre. Bias doesn't make it so.
It's
well,
true.
I mean, I love Jaws. Jaws is one of
great.
those movies that I do love. I guess the definition of geek films that we've talked about, amongst like the sci-fi, fantasy, comic book type stuff, I had trouble fitting Jaws into that family.
It feels like
granted it's
the shark version
it's
of
exaggerated
Jurassic
for
Park.
sure.
Like because you've got this creature who's super huge, so it's not a normal thing, and it's the same. And I mean, that's how I would argue it is. Think of Jurassic Park, like they shouldn't be there. It's not a normal thing for dinosaurs to be there. It's not a normal thing for a shark this massive to be there, and yet they are.
That's
and the people are dealing with the repercussions of what's happening here.
So basically, is Chris on that page too? Is Chris saying basically that he thinks it's got to be geek?
Viewers, so Caitlin seems appalled that Jaws is not on the list.
Right?
So the rest of you guys chime in. Do you think should we put Jaws in here? Do we need a bigger boat? Should we? Maybe
also,
we do.
There's a comet that's in Jaws that I don't know if you noticed, like there's this one shot, I was watching it, I want to say like a year or two ago, And I'm like, wait, what? What is that? In the background, you see a comet, and it was just captured. It just
no way.
got captured on film.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's just
That's
a rando
cool.
fact, but
That's an awesome fact.
Chris Weitzel does think that Jaws should be on the list. I'm okay with putting it on.
I think we should let the people vote and put it on there. I will say this.
I think they've voted
about why I would not count it as such, because I think that the part of Jurassic Park that is sci-fi is the part where they bring them back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's what clearly makes that film a geek film, whereas I think a large shark is just a large shark. They don't make it's not a genetically modified shark. It's not
How dare you, sir?
But again,
it's just a large shark.
I would say that it's one of those films that is like. Now, granted, you could make the same argument to be about Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You could say there's nothing geek about Indiana Jones necessarily, right? Like, that's so. I would include Jaws in the basic definition of like, well, fine, we're including that, so you got to include that as well. I generally tend to include Indiana Jones under the fantasy category because it's like fairly out there.
And I could see that for Jaws because the shark keeps coming after them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see that. I feel like we're gonna have to do it because everybody seems to want it included.
Yeah.
Your own brother commented and said one could make an argument that monster movies definitely fit well in the geek world.
They could, yes.
Jaws is a monster movie.
You can make that argument.
You can't get around that.
That's true.
So here's what I propose. Let's add it to the list.
Number one.
Immediately. There's a bag over there.
Oh.
No. There's pens in the bag.
Oh.
So
grab a pen so we can write it in.
There you go.
Here we go. So we'll still talk about our other last film, and then we only got room for 12 films, so we're gonna have to bump something to make room for Jaws.
Yeah.
It's probably not gonna be hard to do.
Yeah.
No.
So
wonder what it'll be.
Here we'll use red to represent blood.
Represent blood.
So this isn't a geek film, but the movie The Holiday. Have you seen it?
I think so.
Like Jack Black. He composes scores and everything, and so he's going through like all these different movies that are at Blockbuster, and he's like Jaws. He's like 2 notes, you got a villain, and I'm like yes, like that's it, just done it.
It's
oh
true.
my gosh,
yeah, it's true.
insane villain.
So I'm gonna make the assumption that we'll probably put it higher than Last Crusade. So I'm gonna bump Last Crusade to 5.
Okay.
I will attempt to write Jaws right here. So we'll put it at number 4 for now, but we'll talk it out. There will be a chance.
All right.
So, and then we got one more movie to talk about. So
you have more notes, 5 notes on this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's right. So our last movie is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I'm embarrassed to say I watched as a 41-year-old man. I watched for the first time today, this afternoon, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It is so good. I think I waited so long to watch it because people told me that it was slow.
It is.
And but I didn't find it slow at all. I thought it was great.
It's slow. I rewatched it because I hadn't seen it in forever, and as I was rewatching it, I'm like, you know what? We're so impatient now, and only like certain films make you wait. WALL-E is a film that you have to wait for even dialogue. You know, you've got this. It's silent for so long, and you have to wait. Godzilla, which I didn't really care for necessarily, but I did really like that you had to wait for the monster. So
yes.
Your mic apparently went out, so
oh,
you can lean more towards
you guys
this
can
one.
share that one.
Oh, there we go.
It's picking up a lot, so you don't need to get too close to it.
Put it like right there.
Yay!
I'm just gonna shut off the 3.
I like that it made you wait, and of course back then it was a little bit more normal. But even with the score, like there wasn't really any music.
Yeah.
Until later on in the film. So that's a great.
And it played such a big part.
It did.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Have I seen
Close Encounters?
I have seen it a long time ago, but I have seen it.
So what do you think?
I'm on the it's sort of slow bandwagon.
I really expected to be like.
Yeah.
I was I put it in and figured I would watch it in the background while I was doing some laundry.
Yeah.
And I had trouble doing the laundry because I'm like, I'm totally engaged in this.
Really?
Like, I just want to sit and watch it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would have to watch it again. I think that so let's go back. Like, this is the earliest film that we have on here, and so
Is Jaws before this one?
Jaws
I think
would have been
Jaws
before
is
this.
technically the earliest.
Yeah, but this would have been. I would have seen this before Jaws, and as a kid, I think as a kid, this movie does not have some of the awe and the amazing adventure that some of the other films we're talking about do have. You know, so that's where I would just land with it. I would just say kind of like.
Yeah. I was just, I think I kind of enjoyed the fact that I saw all these other Spielberg films before I saw this one.
Yeah.
Because I saw hints of them in this one.
Mm.
You know, obviously there's hints of what eventually became E.T.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about beforehand, and I think I put on Facebook, during the music for Close Encounters, at the end you can hear When You Wish Upon a Star.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few points where it's like, and they hide it amongst other like minor chords and stuff like that, but it's totally there.
Yeah.
But I didn't mention on Facebook, there's also a point when the ship is communicating with the people that the ship only does 2 notes in succession, like 3 times. It goes, dur, dur, and
Oh,
it totally
really?
does the Jaws
wow.
thing.
No way. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And this one came out after Jaws.
That's
So
super
that was clearly a reference.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
same thing, like it has, you know, this giant world that we don't get to see a ton of. And I had seen jokes about this movie.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen the Weird Al Yankovic film UHF?
Yes.
So he makes fun of the mashed potato thing,
Oh,
yeah.
you know, and I'd
Actually,
seen
somebody commented. Didn't someone comment like mashed potatoes were never the same after that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I expected to find a lot of it hokey just because of all that stuff, but
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm not gonna say it's super high on the list, but
Yeah. Here's another fun fact about this film. The spaceship used when you see the view of the alien ship is actually the headquarters, the top of the headquarters from Blade Runner turned upside down.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have enough.
Wow.
They
Had to
didn't have
save
enough budget. Yeah, they wanted to save money, so they reused it. Do you want to put it? I mean, I think you could make a case for moving both Indiana Jones films back and putting it at 5.
I'd still put it behind Last Crusade.
Okay.
I could put it above Temple of Doom though.
Okay, slide it in there.
Here, for now, we can just move the Story Geeks logo.
Yeah.
Slide Temple of Doom over.
I do think like when we start to talk about iconic, that changes the discussion a little bit because
Yeah.
iconic is related to how it changed culture, how it had an impact on things, and I do think that Close Encounters had a lot of impact on later films.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was getting like Arrival vibes.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Well, kind of Contact, but
Exactly.
and then there are just again so many times that you'll see Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Close Encounters of the Nerd Kind, just all these knockoff
Yeah.
plays on that title.
So true.
So even that movie, I think it was called like The Fourth Kind or something, or it was dealing with.
That was creepy.
It was.
So you loved it.
I have like feelings about where I am in the horror,
Okay.
like what I like and what I don't like. But yeah, anyway, so
I
feel like it's I would move it higher.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it's part of it is because of my with Indiana Jones, like
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's kick one out.
Well, real quick, one more thing I want to say. Both Close Encounters and E.T.
Yeah.
What I love about these is they're movies about encounters with aliens, and they're not horror films.
Oh yeah.
They're not stories about how these aliens are this malevolent force that's going to come destroy us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're stories that show us that if there were aliens out there, that things like hope and love could actually transcend from one race to another,
Yeah, that's true.
from one planet to another. And there's so much positivity in that. And it's not cheesy, it's not hokey.
No,
It's just inspiring.
absolutely. I agree.
So who we're gonna kick out?
I forgot somebody.
Comment wise, real quick, Not a lot of love for Close Encounters,
Oh,
mostly because,
wow.
well, I just don't think a lot of people have seen it. Caitlin said she thinks it started Alien movies. And Cody said Close Encounters belongs in the top 10, but not necessarily top 5.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Cody,
Why
I thought we were like
Agree.
you know,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the same page.
Okay, but so here we have to do. Have you guys seen The Wall with Chris Hardwick, the new game show?
No.
No.
Then maybe I shouldn't make this joke. There's a whole thing where green balls earn you money and red balls take money away. It's like, now we gotta drop the red ball.
Oh, nice.
If
Nice.
my wife is watching, she'll enjoy that. Anyway, since we put Jaws in the mix, we have to knock a movie out. So
Probably.
the easiest choice is the BFG since we have it sitting at 12. But
I could make a case for Lost World though.
I
Since you
cannot.
couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
I could make a case for War of the Worlds.
Oh.
I'd say
Sandra could
BFG.
not.
I'm fine with BFG.
Yeah.
Let's just take it.
I'm fine.
What do you live viewers think? BFG
Yeah.
okay with you? Make some
Live
comments real
viewers.
fast.
Live viewers, which one goes?
Yes, Monty, we voted Crystal Skull out early on, but since we added Jaws, we have to vote another one out.
Yeah, we added Jaws. We didn't plan on adding Jaws.
I did.
The people have
Cool.
spoken.
Caitlin says keep War of the Worlds. Chris says take out BFG. Okay, so
All right,
Okay, bye.
we're good with that then.
BFG, go hang
Done.
out with Crystal Skull.
That'd
So,
be a weird mashup.
Yeah.
okay. So, I feel like for our bottom 6,
Yeah.
we might be okay. So right now, the bottom 6 looks like number 12 is War of the Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Number 11 is AI. Number 10 is The Lost World. Number 9 is Minority Report. Number 8 is Hook. And number 7 is The Temple of Doom. I feel okay about that. How do you guys feel?
I feel pretty okay with that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Okay.
This is where it gets.
Yeah.
This is where the gloves come off.
Yeah. Okay, so the top 6 films that we have to finalize our order on here are E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, Jaws, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah. So I think that one
Those
suggestion
are
I
6
have.
of the best movies ever.
I know. One suggestion I have is that I feel like there's more passion for 1 through 4. I do feel like we could switch 5 and 6, but the
Yeah.
discussion is mainly going to be how we order these 4.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
For me personally, Last Crusade sits above Close Encounters.
Okay, so it's easy for me to say that as for me as well, but
No, not for me, but I'm okay if it stays at 6.
okay.
I could see the argument that universally, Close Encounters had a bigger impact.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I would make an argument that because we have Raiders here,
Mm-hmm.
that's more iconic.
Okay, all right,
You know
so
what I
let's
mean?
move Close Encounters to 5, and we'll bump Last Crusade down to 6.
Okay.
Yay.
But now the real fighting begins.
So the top 4, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and E.T.
Yeah.
Those of you guys watching live, start throwing out what your ranking would look like.
Yeah,
of
do your
those
1
4.
through 4. Give us your 1
Make your
through 4.
voices heard.
So again, let's. I think we should define what iconic is again.
Yes.
So definitely, having an influence on future films
Yep.
and like
Mm.
maybe launching that genre.
Yep. On culture.
Mm-hmm.
How much it made? Was it considered a blockbuster? Did it, like some of those kind of
Mhm.
questions? Did it have a cultural impact? Did it have an emotional impact?
Yeah.
Timelessness.
Timelessness, quality.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Does it have a ride?
Does it have a
That's a good
ride?
one.
They all have a
They
ride.
all have a ride. This is by far the worst of the rides, though. Well, this one's not that great of a ride either. This one.
Oh, I love
this one
Jurassic
used to
Park
be
the
good.
ride. I just like getting wet though.
Yeah.
Jaws it's not really a ride.
It's part of a tour.
It's part. Does it even exist anymore?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, I think they took it out in Florida, maybe. Okay, so why don't you? Do you want to just go with what we would do, and then we'll like argue from there? You have a comment you want to read?
No, Monty gave us his top 4, and I like it. It's Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., and the BFG.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Sorry, man, we threw that one out.
Yeah, that one's gone. So he said, what was his first?
Jurassic Park,
And then
Jaws,
Jaws,
and E.T.
E.T. Okay.
Do you guys weigh scores? Because I'm such a huge score fan that
Yeah.
I count that too.
Oh yeah, I would think the score is part of it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I would weigh scores, but if I was doing scores only, Jurassic Park would probably be number one. That's one of my all-time favorite scores.
I'm a little bit torn because this is my favorite movie of all time, right? But I do think that Jurassic Park and E.T. have some of the more of the cultural impact, the emotional impact over this one. This one seems personal to me. This is a blockbuster through and through. There's no question. Yeah, it's a blockbuster of blockbusters. You know, besides Star Wars. So, but I don't know. I think that like if you showed Jurassic Park today, or if you showed E.T. today, I think it would outpace those two. Would outpace Jaws, don't you think? From an emotional impact,
I think they're more timeless than Jaws.
They're more timeless than Jaws.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Do you think so?
I feel like if you're pulling from a group of geeks, you're going to have different feedback than the general population. So, so the general population would say, I think, Jurassic Park and Jaws over Raiders and E.T.
Interesting. What other top fours do we have from the people?
Chris Wetzel says E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, Raiders.
Okay, so he flips these two.
Caitlin says Raiders, Jaws, Jurassic Park, E.T.
Okay.
Nerd Alert Collect Creative says, he's talking about scores. He says, you're comparing she. Oh, sorry. The image is too small. I can't see that far. You're comparing John Williams with John Williams. So what's the best John Williams score? That's a good point.
True.
John Williams wins.
And then let's see. We've also got a vote for Last Crusade, Jurassic Park, Hook, and Raiders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just to be clear, these top four are our top four. It will be some semblance of these top four.
Your top four can be different, though.
For me,
yeah,
I think I'm right in line with Chris. I would go E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, Raiders.
Got it. For me, I would say that I'm just going to go with iconic here. I'm not going to go with my personal favorites because that's the Patreon video.
Real quick before you do that, your brother Cody says Raiders, Jurassic Park, Jaws. So I guess E.T. would be number 4 for him.
Yeah.
I'm probably, if I'm considering just the one, like my order of the ones I like and how I feel like they're iconic in my own life, I'd probably go that way. I think though that if I were to say what's most iconic based on our criteria, I would say Jurassic Park number 1. I'd probably say Jaws number 2, E.T. number 3, and Raiders number 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so Raiders is 4 no matter what.
Yeah.
That seems to be pretty universal.
Jaws is difficult to move.
Jaws is difficult to move. So Raiders is 4. I feel like... Gosh.
Because this movie is still watchable, and there's very little... what do you call it? Like it's the text still works. It's still impressive. Whereas this film, I think a lot of kids today might be like, yeah, it's good, but the special effects aren't quite as good.
Yeah. For those of you listening, he's saying Jurassic Park is watchable today, and E.T. is a little bit more dated.
Yeah.
So I think here's our question. I feel like Jurassic Park is taking number 1 or number 2.
Yes.
So is it battling with E.T. or is it battling with Jaws?
I would say Jaws. That's what I would say.
I would say that it is battling. So I wouldn't have included Jaws in the discussion, but now that it's there, I would say it's battling with Jaws.
Okay, I disagree, but I'll take the minority here, and we'll bump E.T. down to 3.
Okay. So another question is where does Jurassic Park and Jaws go?
So guys watching the show, what's the best movie? What's the most iconic Spielberg film? Is it Jurassic Park? Or is it Jaws, the one that I did not even put on the list for the show?
Yeah.
So, and we won't just sit here quietly and wait until you type something.
No, I would still go back to. I think Jaws is okay. So from the documentary, that's on Netflix. Highly recommend it. It's about Spielberg's career. Jaws was a pieced together film. It's amazing that it's actually decent.
Yeah.
Everything went wrong with Jaws.
Exactly. So the fact that it's actually like even considered in this realm is sort of a miracle unto itself.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this film, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me and the age I was when I saw both films. But I just feel like Jurassic Park just takes. If I'm gonna say that Raiders is the perfect film, Jurassic Park is so close. I mean, you talked about the banner falling.
Yeah.
And you talked about the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
What a fantastic shot.
Yeah.
Objects in rear view mirror maybe closer than
Yeah.
that, or side mirror maybe. I mean, just like these little tiny details that are just phenomenal. So.
But it has 20 years on Jaws, almost 20
Exactly.
years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's kind of saying something that Jaws is even being considered.
Totally.
When it was one of his first films, none of us were born in 1975.
It's true.
So
Yeah, that's very true.
Here's where they're battling for me. Jaws is necessary for Jurassic Park.
ooh.
We wouldn't have gotten Jurassic Park without Jaws.
True.
Maybe that's a little too bold to say, but obviously
Yeah.
there's inspiration there.
Mhm.
But I feel like Jurassic Park is more universal because you don't look at Jurassic Park and categorize it as a horror film.
Yeah.
Which I think some people do about Jaws.
Well done
Yeah.
with the word choice, since both those rides are at the Universal Park.
So that's what I'm having a hard time with. Jaws is clearly the pioneer,
Yeah.
but Jurassic Park is more universal. And me being the kind of guy who does not automatically side with pioneers, I believe we learn how to do things better.
Yeah.
And I believe that later iterations can surpass the pioneers.
I'm curious to see if Monty's still on and Cody and Sarah, Nerdalert Creative. I'm curious to see what they think.
Well, here's what we have so far.
Yeah.
Chris Wetzel sides with Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Caitlin sides with Jurassic Park. Sarah sides with Jurassic Park. Caitlin says that Jurassic Park opened up a whole new world of CGI. That's true. That's not
That
something
is
we
true.
talked about yet.
Mhm.
No word yet from Monty or anybody else.
Okay.
According to his earlier list, it looks like Cody would put Jurassic Park above Jaws too.
So it sounds like there's
Above
quite
Jaws
a bit
also.
of
Obviously, it's above Jaws
support.
too.
There's quite a bit of support then for Jurassic Park
Yeah.
to be number one.
It's still a solid list. If Jaws is 2, and it wasn't even
Exactly.
going to be on the list.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
And I
happy.
still have to cry about this being 4. So let's go ahead and put it there, and then let's recap the list.
All right, here we go. I'm writing it in. This is our final
The definitive.
list. I'm writing sideways, and my handwriting sucks to begin with, so I apologize. Okay,
Count down from 12.
here is our official top 12 most iconic Steven Spielberg films. Do you want to count it down for us?
Yeah.
All right.
So 12, we have War of the Worlds. 11 is AI. 10, The Lost World. 9, Minority Report. 8, Hook. 7 is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. 6, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. 5, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 4, Raiders of the Lost Ark. 3, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. 2, Jaws. And number 1, Jurassic Park.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Woo!
If we had the music, we'd play Jurassic Park music right now.
Yes.
As an
We
outro.
would.
Have you seen the...
If I had a keyboard, I could play it for you.
There you
Have
go.
you seen the version where they have that scene and the score plays and it's all majestic, but instead they replace it with I think it's like a kazoo or something. It's
No.
hilarious. 'Cause
Oh,
it's
that's
like
awesome.
you're waiting for that moment and the music to swell and it's like it's the best.
That's awesome. Well, is that it for today?
That's it.
Oh man.
Thanks everybody thanks who's watching live for joining us. Thanks you
Yeah.
for all your comments.
Don't
I
forget-
can't seem to say the phrase thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button no matter where you're listening. So make sure you subscribe and leave us a comment on our blog or on YouTube. And before we close out the show, I will read an iTunes review very quickly here, which is going to be dead air because Nathan's going to have to cut this part out because I got to go find an iTunes review.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll be there in a second.
bear with us. We're finding an iTunes review.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's a lot of good ones. So
Yeah. And you can do one as well, and we will read it on the show if you do one. So this one comes from Sleepwalker42, and they say that this is an important podcast with a 5-star rating. Many shows attempt to do what the Story Geeks podcast does, but few do it as well as Jay and his crew. Every bit of media that we consume carries with it ideas, questions, and presuppositions, and this podcast does an excellent job of helping people think through those matters. If you are looking for a show to help you think deeper about issues that you are already subconsciously thinking about, I strongly recommend the Story Geeks. So thank you, Sleepwalker42. That's
awesome.
Really awesome. Yeah, that's a really fantastic review. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yes, thank you.
So, go ahead.
Well, before we wrap up, Sandra, tell us where everybody can find you.
Oh, yeah. Where can people find me?
Give us a reminder on what you're doing so we can all go find what you're doing.
I am on Twitter at sand_rad. Also on Instagram at sand_rad1, I think, because somebody stole it.
Oh.
And you can find our show at 2819 show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yeah, definitely go check that out. I think you guys will really enjoy that. Links to many of the things we've talked about today are in the show notes. Also, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We're about to get into some Patreon content that will only be able to be seen on Patreon if you support us on Patreon. And remember, that's only $3 a month to access that exclusive content. And we just really appreciate you supporting us. So even if you never look at that content, you get to support us, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate that. To do that, head on over to www.thestorygeeks.com.
Yes, and share us with your friends as well. If you want to reach Professor X levels of influence in your life, share us with your friends. Let them know about the Story Geeks group. Send them to thestorygeeks.com and help us spread the word.
Absolutely. And as always, question everything in your favorite geek stories and always seek the truth.
See you next time.
Bye, YouTube.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for all the comments. Monty, I saw that you stepped out, dude. Jurassic Park won, so you can be happy. You took the top slot.
There you go. Bye, guys.